Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for tuning in to the CWL podcast, week number 2, episode number 2, here on twitch.tv/MaDaC FPS, on YouTube, on iTunes, on on Google Play Store, on Spotify, on every single place you can get your podcasts. We are available. I am here once again with my good friend and co-host, MaDaC. How are you doing today?
Pretty good, pretty good. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm good.
So you got yourself some water there, I see.
Oh, yeah. I'm staying hydrated. A little tired today.
What?
A bit of a late night last night. I was out having dinner with some friends out in Boston. It's about a 2-hour drive from where I live. So got back around midnight, got up for work at around 6. So.
Oh, dude, I actually also got up at 6 o'clock this morning for the first time in a little while. I actually just had 2 days off and then woke up at 6 a.m. this morning. And so when I got back, came home and took a nap. So,
Yep, I did not have that luxury. I went straight from work to the class, then from class to dinner. Now we are sitting here talking about some Call of Duty. So
Nice.
Before we jump into the meat of what we have tonight, I wanted to share a little story with our viewers and listeners, wherever they may be around the world. So when I kind of first got the itch to get back into content creation and the itch to get back into podcast making, I had a second Twitter account that I was just kind of not using. It was just kind of unused. So I was like, oh, fuck it. I'm going to make this like the podcast Twitter, which, it wasn't really, it was just an idea at the time, but it was there. And, I approached MaDaC about becoming a co-host. We kind of discussed a couple of things which never really came to fruition, but, we're here. I'm happy with where we ended up. But anyway, so we're tweeting out predictions. I share the account with MaDaC. And do you want to kind of explain what happened there, or do you want me to do it, or?
Oh, I think you've got it at this point.
I mean, I guess I'll do it, seeing as either you're not talking or I can't hear you, either one.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I said you got it at this point.
Okay. Yeah, so basically, MaDaC was like, oh, I'm going to change the bio. Yeah, completely fine. I'm going to tweet out some stuff. Completely fine, yeah. And, I'm going to change the birthday of the account to be the first day that we did the show. Sounds good. Get an email in my inbox. I think I went to sleep, then I woke up, like, you did this while I was asleep. Woke up, your CWL_podcast account has been temporarily locked. Okay. So, anyway, to cut the long story short, MaDac's an idiot. He changed the date to the first show date, which then caused Twitter to flag it as being an under 13, like the account holder being under 13, which, according to their terms of service, you can't do, which then locked our account. And so here we are. We have a new temporary account. I don't know if we're going to end up sticking with it or what's going to...
This one's doing better than the last one anyway. We're good.
All right. Yeah. Well, let's pretend it was planned then, and let's just completely ignore everything I just said. Anyway, so the new Twitter account is right above us, the same place the other one was last week. I think it looks a little cleaner. I'll give you that. The CWL podcast rather than CWL_podcast. So
hell yes.
So let's roll with it. Let's roll with the punches here.
Yeah, and I mean, while we're on the topic, a big shout out to anybody who, first of all, did follow us on the original account, and even bigger shout out to everybody who's now followed us on this account, because you guys are the homies. And so I don't think, have you even logged into this one yet?
No, not yet. I do plan on it, but I just haven't got around to it yet.
Okay, so was it this morning or last night? I think so. Last night we had Vandy, who's obviously coming down the show a little later. He followed the Twitter account, so that was obviously a good thing. And then I believe it was this morning when I woke up, I looked at the notifications, and we actually also had Heretics' coach. I think it was Coach.
Oh, nice.
Followed us as well. So, and I don't think he followed the last one. So,
well, okay.
Like I say, it was all planned.
All planned from the start.
Yeah.
All right.
Performance manager. That's who it was.
Yeah. So, like MaDaC mentioned, we do have our very first guest. I'm super excited. In previous iterations of this podcast, I've always kind of dreamed of getting like players and all these insiders from the scene on the show. And for whatever reason, we interviewed Revan, but it was like I spoke to him ahead of time via like Skype text rather than like a voice. And so it was kind of awkward kind of sharing that because it was just me reading what was written on my screen. But anyway, that was kind of the extent of the interviews. So I'm actually super excited and a little bit nervous about tonight and having Vandy on. And I feel like this is going to be a huge milestone for me personally and us as a show. And I can just kind of envision the growth that we're going to get from here. And I'm excited. It excites me.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, I mean, obviously, the fact that we already have, like I just mentioned, had a couple of people within the community following that Twitter account. We've got Vandy coming on. I've mentioned to you, and I've kind of, well, I think this was on the last Twitter, but I did kind of hint at having a couple of guests possible for next week as well. Mm-hmm. So, we're moving, baby.
Oh, yeah. Moving on up in the world.
What up, Smoothed? I see you're in the chat.
Hi, friend. Anyway, so I feel like this is a nice way for us to transition into our first topic of the night, which is last week's predictions. So at the very end of the show, I pressed you for a prediction, and
you did.
Do you want to talk about your prediction first and how it turned out, or do you want me to take mine?
So for me, I believe my prediction was EU making a roster change.
Correct.
And that has yet to happen.
So my understanding is, and this is a very limited understanding from a outsider, is that they were planning on making a change, which, as I mentioned last week, I really don't understand. Like, these teams are on like the cusp of being the best team in the entire world. Like, why would you really mess with that the chemistry, the formula that you have going? But
right.
So that they were planning on making a change, but something fell through from what I've read on Reddit and on Twitter. Something fell through. I guess either someone got cold feet that was planning on joining, or something along those lines. I'm not entirely sure, but so EU makes a change. Was going to happen, now isn't happening.
Yes.
So
I was going to be right. Technically, I was right until somebody wanted to. They were going to move to EU. They heard that I made that prediction. They just wanted to prove me wrong, and so they backed out.
That is 100% correct.
Yeah. So what was your prediction, Stone?
Anyway, so I feel like your prediction was like 75% right. But
yeah.
So my prediction was that EG would not make a change. And I feel like almost immediately, like, we pressed end on the call, we pressed stop on the recording of the stream, and immediately it felt like, oh yeah, the Facento retired, and they're picking up Attach. So, which unofficially, but again, that's what I've read on Twitter, that's what I've read on Reddit.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a whole bunch of roster changes going on, of course. So, it's, yeah, I mean, it's still up in the air exactly what's going to happen, but... Right. It wouldn't be surprising at this point, I don't.
I just briefly want to address a comment that's just been made in chat. Insane talks about ASMR podcast, and if you would like to listen to MaDaC do some ASMR, I suggest you tune into his streams throughout the week. Hopefully, we're not going to do some ASMR podcasts, but throughout the week, we have some fun on the stream. I'm included occasionally, but you definitely.
Yeah, that was we had a lot of fun the other day.
Oh yeah,
I think we were playing some league play for anybody who wasn't there, and yeah, we had a couple of rowdy people in the chat who were setting challenges for us, and ASMR was one of them.
And actually, I feel like this is another beautiful, seamless transition into what I hope is going to be the next topic of discussion, which is league play. And I would love to get your opinion on the system as a whole, how it compares to league play as it's been in previous years. Like, did you prefer like the Black Ops 2 system? Did you prefer like any of the other systems that have come since then? What is your opinion?
So I like it. I like playing it, but I also like playing Call of Duty. So I enjoy being able to, not have to go out of my way to specifically find people to play with, to basically have to then like grind game battles or do scrims, things like that, right? So for that matter, I think is great. The problem I see at this point is it took them what, 3-4 months?
Yeah.
And they basically came out with a system where it's just down to whoever plays longer,
Right.
and also I think a big part of it as well is who plays in squads, unless it's down to me and you playing in squads, because that actually results in losses.
3 hours. 3 hours it took us to get our first win. That's why we talk on a podcast. That's why we don't play.
Very true.
Yeah.
However, so as far as it goes, and as far as like, having a public lobby where you can play the competitive rule set, is great. But I mean, that's not something that's new either, right? Like, that's just exactly what we were expecting. The problem is, as a actual league play point of view and what it was hyped up to be and what it was supposed to be, it's definitely not up to par. And yeah, I mean, Smooth just said it best in the chat right now. Black Ops 2 Star was best.
So I kind of agree with your last comment there. If they'd sold it as a public playlist with the competitive rule set, then it would be 100% on the money. And I don't know if I'd like it more, but it definitely would have been sold accurately. Whereas now I feel like we were sold like a Black Ops 2 style league play where they use that for qualifying for champs, where if they use this, it's going to, like, people who just sit and play are the ones that are rewarded. Exactly like you said, you're rewarded for playing longer, for grinding. You're not rewarded for winning. So
yeah,
I feel like we were, like I said, we kind of missold the product, which
exactly.
I can't think right now, like, how could they have worded it? How could they have sold it to be accurate? But like, whatever they sold us is not right. And kind of like you said, though, I do enjoy playing hubs, and I do enjoy playing league play just because it's like there's less bullshit. Like, I feel like you're not going to walk around a corner and walk into one of those little trip mines that sit on the wall and you're not going to get that huge wall thing like the radiator.
Oh yeah, the microwave,
yeah. So I do enjoy that, but there are definitely improvements that could be made. And before we kind of move on, I just want to touch on something I just saw on Twitter. UYU have officially announced Parzilion. I'm not entirely sure how you pronounce that. And we'll be replacing Skies, and we're going to touch on all the roster changes tonight.
Yeah.
But
I know exactly, and so I actually just got a message back from Bandy about it as well. He was saying UYU should be announcing soon tonight.
There we go.
I can answer some questions about Skies, so we're good to go on that.
All right. Do you have an ETA of when he will be available?
So he just said that they're currently scrimming United, so he might just be a little bit late.
Okay. So would you like to jump into the roster change talk while we wait for him?
So I think one of the good things that we could touch on actually is is what we said we were going to wait for until last. But the franchising.
Okay. Yeah. So where to begin? I feel like part of. So I kind of see this from 2 points of view. One of them from being like MLG / the org owners' point of view, and the other being the players. Now let's talk about the MLG side first, the org owners first. They pay, supposedly they're supposed to pay their players a living wage. Let's assume on the lower end of things, let's assume that's between, let's say, $1,500 and $2,000 a month, which is 25. That's almost $25,000 a year for 5 players, which is $125,000 a year. Then that doesn't include, I don't know, like equipment. That doesn't include travel. That doesn't include you go out for a team dinner that costs $200 because everyone gets a steak and a lobster and other things along those lines. So they invest this large amount of money in these players, and they want control over what's going on with the players because they, like I said, they invested all this money. And if you look at the LCS, you look at the Overwatch League, you look at, I think those are actually kind of the 2 big ones. You look at those 2 systems, and actually, the Overwatch League is obviously also run by Activision Blizzard, which also owns and develops Call of Duty and therefore the CWL. So I think they're kind of going down a similar path. But like they've invested all this money, they want ownership. They want to be able to decide what happens, and that often leads to decisions and situations like we've had with Accelerate, and that's kind of where you look at it from the player side. Some of these players play 40, 50, 60 hours a week. It's a full-time job for them. They represent the sponsors and the org on most, if not all, social medias. I'm sure the orgs take a cut of the winnings. I'm sure they take a cut from the CWL salary that the CWL actually provides for them outside of the organization salary. They work their asses off. They earn this spot in this league just for the org to turn around and say, nah, fuck you. You 5 underperformed, so you're done.
So I don't want to go too deep into the whole Accelerate thing because I know that we are going to be obviously touching on it a little later with Vandy as well. But so one of the he actually tweeted about it last night, and I think it was pretty much spot on. So he said, just 44 days ago, Accelerate beat FaZe and Team Sween, who are obviously massive teams who've been around for a while and been obviously doing well for themselves in the PLQ bracket play when it was all on the line. 7 best of 5s later, the whole roster is scrapped, and the opportunity they fought so hard to earn is given back to the players they outplayed and outworked. Tragic.
So this is kind of assuming that it is going to the FaZe roster, which is unconfirmed currently, but I feel like he's somewhat of an he's definitely an insider.
I mean, not even necessarily, right? It's because no matter who Accelerate ends up picking up, it's going to be people that were more than likely in the qualifier and were more than likely beaten by Accelerate at the time to actually get in there, right? So it's no matter what, they did do that work, and they didn't. Now they've got nothing to show for it, basically. Well, not nothing, but.
So I think something that I've kind of seen I did a little research right before we went live tonight, and one of the things I saw was I can't remember Tainted. I believe Tainted Minds.
Tainted Minds, yeah.
I believe this was them who was talking to the owner of Accelerate, and he was saying he wanted $100,000 to $150,000 for this spot, which I'm going to assume is a pretty small amount compared to what the actual franchising is going to cost. And that's another thing we haven't even touched on. Like the LCS teams and the OWL teams have spent upwards of millions to to get into this league. And I remember seeing when the Overwatch League was forming and the franchising for the LCS was kind of around a similar time, and the millions that some of these orgs were dropping. Like, even if you look at like Optic, who has
that's exactly what I was about to say. Go ahead.
Who has both a team in the LCS, in the OWL, and about to be in the CWL. They must have dropped upwards of tens of millions.
So that's why a lot of these franchises like Optic, like 100 Thieves, had to go out and actually get people to invest in the orgs themselves, right? So because of that, it's obviously expanded the esports world, especially within Call of Duty, for these organizations that are in Call of Duty. It's expanded like their horizons. You know, that's why we've seen a lot of different changes in all different kinds of aspects for these organizations that were in Call of Duty and now are expanding out elsewhere as well. And I mean, yeah, like look at the difference in Optic 2 years ago or whatever it was compared to what it is right now. It's a pretty different organization, right? I think they are starting to get back to their roots and everything else, but it's definitely had a huge impact, and it's done a lot of good and bad things for the organization, I think. So because that's the other point of view, right? Is the organizations themselves, how they feel, the things that they are going to have to go through to go into franchising. Because let's face it, when it comes to franchising, even though it's Call of Duty, I feel like a lot of people are expecting, like, okay, well, it's not going to change the teams that are within it. Like, we're still going to have Optic, FaZe, 100 Thieves, EG, like all the regular teams. It's just gonna be, we're gonna spend a bunch of money first. Like, no, that's probably not gonna happen. People like these organizations like Accelerate, and I mean, UYU's got quite a big supporting behind them, and so is Gen G. Obviously, they're in the Overwatch League as well. But a lot of these smaller organizations, which again has been kind of the grassroots of Call of Duty throughout the years, they're going to diminish, basically. They're not going to be able to obviously get into these leagues, and therefore it's going to be difficult to try and, you know, form an organization to actually become successful and make it into a business, right?
I think what the CWL is currently lacking, that both Overwatch and League of Legends do have, is that kind of academy team, the B team, if you will, that operates entirely in this league. It's still a league, but it's not like the main league, and you still, I assume, get a salary. You still a part of the organization.
Yeah,
and that does open up the amateurs a chance to kind of get into the big leagues, if you will, because like I'm not entirely sure on the rules when it comes to the OWL, but I definitely have seen players, we're going to move this person up from the academy team, or in the LCS, either way, like both, like it's happened.
I mean,
so I definitely,
I mean, I know you don't particularly watch a lot of League of Legends, but that's basically what 100 Thieves ended up doing in the LCS last season, or last split. They ended up bringing up somebody from the academy team to replace a player that was, although a lot of the people in the community thought was performing well, was not necessarily meshing well with the team. And I mean, ultimately after the split ended, they ended up getting dropped into a different team. But you know, having that availability of the academy team there is something that I think is obviously a great opportunity for both org and players themselves. And yeah, I think it's definitely a place that Call of Duty should go. But I can't see it happening before franchising. I just can't see it happening.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
And I think a big thing is, and I kind of touched on this last week as well, is you know, MLG, Activision, all of the parties involved with Call of Duty and the events of and CWL and everything, they're slowly starting to head in the right direction now. But one of the big things that they seem to keep doing is going backwards and forwards with making changes all the time and things like that. And a lot of the time it's been, okay, this is the system, and then next year completely scrap it. Okay, this is now the system, instead of making minor tweaks to actually get closer and closer towards a system that actually works, right? We're finally starting to do that this year. I think is probably the best kind of rule set and everything as far as like the I guess terms and conditions of the league itself. Maybe not in-game rules, but that's a whole different story. So like I said, I think we're heading in the right direction. The most important thing now is to keep on doing that, and once they have found something that is a good kind of rule set and something that works well, aka an organization can't just drop their full team 7 best of 3s later for a completely new team and things like that. That is when we can look at going into franchising and things like that, right? Which, I mean, again, I guess you could argue both ends, because you could even say doing franchising before we come up with that will bring in some of the more heavy dogs that are going to have more say in what's going on and stuff like that anyway, right?
Right.
Also, a quick shout out to FLPT2, I think. Sorry if I butchered the name there, but thank you for following the stream, brother. I appreciate it.
Yeah, shout out to everyone that's in Twitch chat. Twitch Lando. Are you the commentator? If you're still here, are you the shoutcaster / sources person on Twitter? Juliet, again, thank you for hanging out. And I'm gonna completely butcher this, but FLPT, whatever it is. Again, thank you. We do appreciate your just hanging out with us, just talking Call of Duty. Anyway, back to franchising. I mean, kind of going a step back a little bit. I think if you are going to franchise, which I've seen and heard from a lot of people online, there definitely needs to be this feeder system that I kind of was mentioning a little bit, and you talked about the 100 Thieves did last split, excuse me. Because these players, that's how Call of Duty has been over the years. Like there's established players, Crim, Karma, Scump, like these players that you've seen year after year, Aches, JCap, Clayster, and then you look at like these players that just come out of nowhere every single year that just thrive. And TJ Halley, for example, like not too long ago, he was just this online star who played S&D tournaments and did nothing else, and now he's winning tournaments, and he's arguably one of the best in the world. And that's what makes Call of Duty so amazing. If you look at other esports, like I feel like in CSGO you get it a little bit, but there's more of a ladder to climb. If you look at like all of these, like nobody really just comes out of nowhere and wins an event, and that's why. That's what kind of makes it so interesting to the new people coming in. That's what like that's a good thing about these smaller orgs being able to just work their way up and like even before the players, like the org itself. I think I love to see like new names popping up that are like, I've never heard of this organization. Who the hell are they? Right. Oh my god, now they've won an event. Like, again, who the hell are they? What are they doing here? And yeah, it just makes it more interesting for everybody. I think it adds obviously a lot more storylines, but again, it's one of those things, right? You can argue both ends, because then if we have Envy, EG, Optic, 100 Thieves, all these guys who are in the league year in, year out, storylines are also going to be created, which are going to be more a lot longer storylines, right, and create more legacies and things like that, right? So there really is, there's so many different sides to everything, but yeah, I definitely agree. Like I personally do enjoy that as well, like being able to see those young, talented, like just turned 18 guys who've been grinding for the past like 7 years of their life, and all of a sudden come out of nowhere to knock Optic off the main stage and take the W. Exactly.
It's a great thing to watch, and obviously it's a great thing for them to be able to then continue with that opportunity, right?
I just want to touch on something I've just seen on Twitter. I don't know if you follow Sir Scoots.
I believe I do. I didn't see it.
Okay. If anybody doesn't know, he has been in esports. I want to say for around 20 years. He was definitely like the great grandfather of like laid all the foundations for like every different esport. Like he's done everything in esports. He was in management with EG for a long period of time before they got bought out by Twitch. He's done a lot of things, and he's still very much like finger on the pulse, involved with everything. Just tweeted, "Your silence is deafening at the owner of Accelerate. Do yourself a favor and give the CWL spot to the players that earned it. Then apologize for screwing up and tell us what you will do better going forward. This will be much better look for you than when MLG does it for you." I would assume this kind of means that, like I said, he has his finger on the pulse. That like,
yeah,
maybe this implies that MLG is about to step in and do something. I mean, maybe we're just looking too deep into this, but.
Yeah, and so I don't know if you're still on that tweet, but I see somebody below that, and he actually just replied to it, but somebody from VP eSports tweeting about an exclusive interview with Justin that's going to be out tomorrow morning, I guess, which, I mean, doing an exclusive interview and doing it with VP, honestly, I don't even know who VP eSports is. Compared to just getting on your own Twitter timeline or on your own YouTube channel or doing something off of your own back instead of waiting for somebody else to do it for you. I think it's especially at this point, right? Again, that's one of the things that Call of Duty, well, I was going to say lacks, but actually no, they don't. If you'd gone to somebody like Deserto or somebody like that, who is actually anybody who's followed Call of Duty for a while knows who Deserto is. If you'd gone to somebody like that, then yeah, absolutely, by all means, go ahead. And it's something that everybody would see. But I mean, if I didn't see that tweet right now, I probably wouldn't even known that article ever would have come out.
Right.
Until other people started talking about it.
I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, just viewers or listeners, correct me if I'm wrong, but around PC esports. So I don't know why you wouldn't go to an endemic like Deserto, or even come on the CWL podcast, follow us on Twitter, even come on here and just talk about the shit that you've just done to your players.
Yeah,
but again, we're not getting into that yet.
No, we're not. So I think you were about to say something as well about the franchising. I don't remember. We kind of left off.
Yeah, I don't know. I got
sidetracked.
Yeah, a little sidetracked. My blood starts to boil when I think about people getting completely fucked over from their livelihood.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, I mean, so I know we were talking about basically the smaller orgs being able to come in and win a tournament out of nowhere and things like that. Again, I just feel like it's ultimately it's a good thing for Call of Duty. It's a good thing for any esport at the end of the day. Look at all of the success that any of these like sports have had after going into franchising. I think so. Yeah, I don't think it's ever going to be a bad thing. I just think that we're at a point. So, like League of Legends, for example, they only just did franchising last year. Before that, it was same kind of thing, right? Like pretty much any other organization could come in, go out, and things like that. Right. And then last year they changed it to franchising. So let's look at the differences between not just the LCS, but all of the League of Legends leagues versus the CWL. Everything was established. You knew what the rule sets were. You knew when you could trade players. You knew pretty much everything, right? Not all, as far as like the way the majority of things worked. Not a lot of things changed necessarily for League because they already had it set in stone. That's how they've been doing it, and they'd already had a lot of success. Look at the numbers that they were getting on Twitch and YouTube and everywhere, right? And again, that was something that had been going on for years, right? So I think that we need to get to a place where, again, like I said before, the whole league and players and orgs and everybody feels comfortable enough in saying like, okay, now we're at a point where we're happy. What about you guys? Yeah, we're happy. Okay, cool. Now we should look at doing this, and now we should really start ramping the things up. The problem is, I think they do need to start doing it soon, especially with the way, obviously, the esports world is going, and more specifically, the way that the Call of Duty world's going. We've had many years now where people have been questioning, is this the death of Call of Duty esports? I don't think that's necessarily gonna ever be a thing anytime soon. But I think franchising is something that would also help give Activision that kick up the butt to actually start focusing on us and not just the public aspect of things, right?
Well, presumably, if let's say there's 12 teams, each team's going to pay upwards of $1 million. That's like 12 million right there. So that's a lot of money just to be like, okay, thank you for your money, and I'm just going to go back to like making games for public players.
Yeah.
And
no, exactly.
Something that, I mean, we can touch on a little bit, but this is another very big topic that I think we're going to probably spend a long time talking about over the extent of this podcast, would be yearly game releases. If you look at every other major esport, even if you look at the other console esports, Gears of War, Halo, Call of Duty has like this big, I don't know, like blister growing out of its forehead that's like pulsating, because like it's pulsating like once a year it like bursts, and then this is a very visual. I don't know why I kind of went down this.
I don't know where that went, but let's just pull it back.
Yeah. Anyway, let's put the puss back in the. No.
Okay, no.
Done.
Stop.
Sorry, I'm struggling to get back onto my train of thought. Yearly game release, yes. Yep. If you look at every other major esport in the entire esports ecosystem, like there's no other game that has this yearly release, and that I feel like that is the biggest hindrance, and the way that it rotates between the three publishers. Wait, is it 3 or 4 at this point? Activision, Treyarch, and Sledgehammer.
Not Activision, Treyarch, Infinity Ward, and Sledgehammer.
There we go. Like, you never really know what you're going to get until September, October, when the multiplayer and the multiplayer trailers get released and the pros get a chance to typically they go out to the studios and they play the game and game test a little bit. But like,
yeah, I mean, it's like Forrest Gump said, right? Call of Duty is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree though. I was I feel like I was probably sat here like just grinning waiting for you to stop so I could say that.
Oh god.
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of those things that again needs to be there needs to be something done about it, because like you said, every other esport out there that is not a thing is not a thing, like at all. When was the last time that there was a Counter-Strike game come out?
I believe 21 years ago.
Yeah, okay. And how big was the esport back then?
Around the size that COD is now, I would say.
Right. And it's grown pretty significantly. I see literally just CSGO players streaming and getting pretty much the same numbers as the CWL does sometimes.
Exactly.
While as I don't think I've ever really, well, with the exception of Scump and Nade every now, probably back in the day. In fact, no, probably not even Nade has ever hit this, unless maybe counting his return to Twitch. So I guess basically, with the exception of Scump, I don't think I've ever really seen any Call of Duty player get to those kind of numbers just by themselves on the stream, right?
Exactly.
Same thing with League of Legends. It's pretty much been, well, it's League of Legends. We're not playing League of Legends 4 now. We're still playing League of Legends.
I believe it's going on almost 10 years since like League of Legends was released.
Yeah, exactly. What else we got? Halo did go down that route, but however, I mean, Halo was obviously bigger than Call of Duty back in the day, and as was definitely more established in esports before obviously the downfall. But even now we're on what, Halo 5 versus Call of Duty 26.
Right. But I actually think Halo is a good example because kind of viewership wise, back in the day, Halo, like it wasn't like blowing the doors down or anything, but it was consistent and it was good for back then. And then they went to this, I believe it was semi-yearly, like bi-yearly, every 2 years they released something, and then 343 stepped in rather than Bungie, and like all the different studios became a mess, similar to what COD is now, and the viewership is tanked. So, I mean, I feel like that's a really good example of where we don't want to be.
No, exactly, and again, that's exactly what I think. The what's it called? No, word is gone. The danger, there we go. The danger of us not franchising like soon-ish is that could end up happening, basically, especially you know, I feel like Call of Duty fans year in and year out have to go through the same kind of bullshit. You know, look at pretty much what everybody said about, like, even just league play, not even the actual CWL, but league play itself this year. And, you know, again, if we go play CSGO, Overwatch, League of Legends, any of these games, you can literally hop in a match and you're going to play a ranked play. You can play public matches and be more newbie if you want, but the majority of these people who watch these games on Twitch want to play in similar environments to the pros, right? Exactly. They want to play against better players, they want to improve, and so these games all have a system in place that is just fantastic. All of them are. Meanwhile, you come back to Call of Duty, another year, another game. Right. Then on top of that, we have to wait 3 or 4 months for League Play to come out. And then when it does, it completely sucks ass.
Not only
like,
that,
as far as the ranked goes, at least anyway.
Yeah. Not only that, but even within Call of Duty, there's the subset of rule set, because like you said, like you hop on League of Legends, you hop on Counter-Strike, and you're playing the same game. Whereas you hop into a public match on Call of Duty, there's fucking refrigerated walls that are shooting beams at you. There's like, I don't even...
Yeah, I mean, I actually had a very short argument with somebody on Twitter, actually, a week, maybe 2 weeks ago, and it's not often that I see something that like really triggers me on Twitter at this point. I just let it go. Right. But I think it was Clay that originally tweeted something, and then this guy responded, and Clay's tweet was basically saying how it's crazy how we can be playing a game of Call of Duty, and then a week later we're now relearning the game because everything is basically just fucking changed, right? And that's basically what happens in Call of Duty. We get an update just like you would in, again, any other game, except this update that comes to Call of Duty completely changes the game completely. And then on top of that, we also then get more rule set updates, like you just mentioned, which again completely changes the meta of everything. And like, so now we're at a point where we're not just changing games every year, but we're changing rule sets and the way the game plays like every 2 weeks, right? Again, it's just a huge problem, and this is why, like, going back to what you were saying, I really think that it's time. So this is the biggest thing, right? And this is what I think a lot of people forget or don't even really think about when thinking about this whole franchising thing, and whether Activision wants to support Call of Duty and stuff like that. Activision is now a part of Blizzard, right? Or is Blizzard, basically.
I thought it was the other way around, but okay.
I thought Activision bought Blizzard. Maybe it is the other way around. Anyway, either way, what I'm getting at is these are the people that literally created and run the Overwatch League, right, which was pretty much the pioneer when it comes to franchising and things like that, right? So these people have money. These people know the potential of esports. It's not like they're new to the game or they've never had one of their games be involved in esports whatsoever. No, these guys, like I said, they were the pioneer. They did it before League did it. They franchised before anybody, and I personally think they were pretty successful with it, right? I'm not a big Overwatch fan, but I think they did pretty well with the way they structured it and set everything up.
I mean, it definitely has its flaws, as every system would, but I agree it's a very successful system. And I just have a little bit of a squirrel moment. I do have my tweet deck open, and I just saw a tweet from Adam. I never remember Apicella. He is the
Adam Apicella, yeah.
One of the founding employees of MLG. Really great guy from what I've seen. He tweeted, "Do not mistake silence for inaction." Now, we can definitely imply that this is to do with the Accelerate debacle, I think would be an accurate way of describing it.
Yeah.
From what I've seen of Adam in the past, like I've never met him personally, but I distinctly remember when, going off topic a little bit, when Counter-Strike was hosting when MLG was hosting the Counter-Strike Major.
Yep, which you attended, right?
Yes. Oh, absolutely amazing tournament. Another story for another day. But basically, they posted onto Reddit the schedule, and it said, I'm gonna paraphrase because I don't remember exactly, but basically, quarterfinal 3 or 4 was going to be played in the arena in front of a crowd, but 1, 2, and 3 weren't. And everyone was like, "What the fuck? Like, we're paying all this money, you would like to come and see this.
Yeah.
Can we change this?" And he's like, "Okay, give me a day." Comes back and is like, "Okay, now everything's going to be played in the arena." And so, like, this is someone who is passionate, who cares about what the public think, and there's no denying that. I think we can infer that this is definitely talking about the Accelerate. And
I mean, again, never met the guy, but obviously seen his tweets and everything else as well before, and he definitely seems like he's somebody who is always been working hard to really grow things as much as he can. I think Call of Duty pretty much is his baby at this point. He definitely works hard behind the scenes, trying to put everything in place to make things better and better and better. And I think he's done a fantastic job in doing that. I remember a lot of comments about that specific CSGO major tournament, and a lot of people were saying how it was actually possibly one of the best tournaments that was ever thrown up until that point. I don't know. Since then, not really been following much CSGO either recently, but back then I was watching a lot of majors and things, and the majors were great, they were fantastic, they were definitely a little bit more fabulous than a regular Call of Duty event was back in the day. But then the people who host these Call of Duty events host the CSGO major, and all of a sudden now it just turns into something like the production and just everything about it was fantastic, and obviously they've now incorporated that into Call of Duty as well, and I think they're definitely heading down this right route. I think production wise, Call of Duty, see, that's another thing. I think production wise, maybe with the exception of the analyst desks and things like that, as we like the talent on these shows, which we kind of touched on a little last week, I think production-wise, the CWL is fantastic. I think they've really done a great job. But again, we're at a point where pretty much every esport has that same level of production as well now, right?
Right. I mean, the bar is set high across the entire industry, I feel like.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's like we said, there's a lot of arguments, obviously, both sides, and I think at this point, I think we're pretty much both in agreement with the fact that it's definitely something that would be good for the esport, but whether right now is the time. Well, I think we need to get things figured out a little bit.
Right. So do we have an update from our friend? Do we know any more information?
I just sent him another message there. Like I said, they were scrimming United, so not sure exactly how it was. About half an hour to an hour plus, so hopefully it should be done soon. I just sent him another message, but yeah, I mean, we can definitely move on to roster changes.
All right, so I would like to definitely move on to roster changes, but I would like to start with what I consider the easy changes. Then we're going to move into the more difficult ones. So personally, I would say Reciprocity announcing Dylan. This is just a sub moving to a main roster role, moving into a sub. Like, this isn't like earth shattering. This isn't dropping entire rosters. This is an underperforming team making a change that I assume the team deemed necessary.
Yeah. I mean, I think a question there would be: do you think that is still the right move for them, especially knowing that this whole FA period was coming up? Knowing that they have very good players on the team overall, right? They have a lot of potential. So do you think that they could have possibly looked into getting one of the other free agents that are out there? Because let's face it, there's a lot of good free agents out there as well right now.
See, here's the thing: they were 4 out of 5, well, 5 out of 6 if you include the coach, were EU players, and I feel like somewhat they were kind of trying to stay with the, I guess, kind of the EU kind of feel.
Yeah.
And I would say that Dylan is a outstanding player. I'm just trying to pull up his stats on the qualifier. He played with Team Sweden.
But yeah, so while you pull that up, so yeah, I definitely, for sure, I think that's definitely the thought process behind it. Again, though, I think you've got to ask the question, because these guys all live in Vegas now, right? They're not living in EU anyway. So look at Judd. He's obviously on definitely not an EU team whatsoever. He, however, is an EU player, and so I mean, obviously, traditionally, NA has definitely outdone EU forever in Call of Duty. However, definitely also within the past couple of years, things have kind of changed a little bit. We've definitely seen the EU teams finally turn up a little bit more than what they have been doing again forever. Right. So at this point, it's just a question of, is it pride over like potential at this point? Because again, I get it. You're an EU team. You've got an EU player there that you can just pick up. However, when you have such a wide range of talent out there that literally are in the same country as well anyway, that you're now living, would it not be best to at least explore your opportunities? Because I mean, I think, and again, we don't know, of course. There's definitely always more to the story, but I personally think it's safe to say that they probably didn't look into their options too much, considering how quickly they announced that roster change, right?
Right.
It was like FA period is now open. Teams can swap players, blah blah blah, and within 2 minutes, Rec has announced that change. So, did you manage to pull up Dylan's stats?
Yes. Yeah. So overall KD of a 1.23. I mean, I didn't get to watch as much of the Pro League qualifiers as I'd have liked, but from what I heard, from what I did get to see, he was an outstanding player. I would say that I kind of agree with you. The more I kind of think about it now, like, why didn't they take a risk on a top NA player, given that they already live in Vegas anyway, given that they have to, like, everything's happening in Columbus or Vegas for them. So why would they not take a risk on an NA player over an EU player, which is, as you mentioned, like, it's a question mark. Like, there's no denying that.
Yeah.
The other thing would be who would they have picked up? I guess they kind of what role did they need filled? I'm not entirely sure of the role that Dylan plays.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's more of a like a entry / first into the hardpoint player.
Yeah.
Right.
So I had it up, or actually, no, I've got it up either. No, I've lost it.
So who's an available?
Dylan's a flex.
Okay. Bless you. So
I apologize.
Who is an available free agent that they could have picked up? That's my question. I don't know the answer, but
yeah, I'm sure there's a list out there somewhere in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, and especially at the time. But I mean, so there was obviously all of the FaZe guys that didn't make it, other than Priester and what's he called? The coach.
Crowder.
Replays.
Yep.
Crowder. Yeah. So like, so that's the other thing as well, right? Even all of the people that were subs on teams. Let's face it, you could approach one of those subs as well, considering they would much rather be on a starting roster than they would just staying on as sub anyway, right? Which is potentially what's happening with Zuma by the sounds of things, although again, we've not heard anything about that yet. But then you've also got people like, Parasite, who's been around for a long time. A lot of people question whether he's good or not at this point, but I think he definitely is. He definitely has the potential. I don't know. I really don't actually know who else is a free agent at this point.
I definitely saw a list. I'm gonna try and see if I can hunt it down.
Yeah. Well, and sorry, it's Study's not retired or anything, right? He just wasn't on a team.
I would assume that he's probably signed a contract with the CWL though, so
True. Yeah, I as far as, again, without having a list in front of me, I'm not sure of exact names, but I just think that there probably would have been quite a few people out there.
Definitely.
Okay, so I've found a couple of names actually here. We've got Remy. He's not on a team. He's obviously a really good player. Legal as well. Legal's a pretty good player. Those are the only two that I see on this list. But yeah, I mean, two good players right there. Chino, I guess, is an FA.
Yeah. Off the top of my head, I don't recall what roles those players play. I don't know like if that would have fit into what they needed, but definitely agree. Why did they go with the EU player, the Northern Irish player, rather than the slightly more successful NA? But
yeah,
something I guess we may never know. As
well, I mean, hey, I'd love for him to come out and show us exactly why, to be honest.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And he would be more than welcome on the podcast if he ever feels like it.
Plus, and you know what? You know who I would love to get picked up by a team, actually?
All right, let's hear it.
My boy Killer.
Oh yeah. Did you listen to the interview with Hex?
Yes, I did. Absolutely. And he wants to do it, man. He wants to get back in and get on one of those top teams. He's just waiting on an opportunity. But yeah, I definitely... Did you listen to it as well?
I listened to about 75% of it. It does sound like personal shit going on. So might not turn out for the best. But
so I think as far as his home life, he's pretty much got most of it sorted at this point. I think the big part... he was having a lot of personal stuff going on, but he was ready to play in that first event, and somebody just didn't show up for his team.
Right. That's one of the parts that I listened to. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, exactly. So this he's ready. He just needs somebody to actually play with him. So here, just going. I have found a few others here now. So Phantoms, Gravity, Sim, who are all on FC Black. Simp is an FA. Attach, obviously. Who?
I believe
Excite. Yeah, go ahead.
one of those players you just mentioned, I believe, is on the United Junior roster. I can't.
Possibly.
I can't remember which.
Oh, Simp. Simp is on the Cadets.
Yes, correct.
They're all rumored to go to FaZe actually right now. Then there's Attach, like I just said, who, like we said earlier, might be going to EG. Excite, who I actually mentioned earlier, but he's a Australian player as well.
Right.
And then we've got like the whole. Okay, wait, this is interesting. Let me just have a look at something. Oh, I'm on the wrong tab, that's why.
So while you look up the free agents, I just want to move along slightly in the list of roster changes. I'd like to talk about Envoy. Here's the thing. Gen G was first in their division. Admittedly, Spacely was statistically the worst player, but they were still first in the division. So why would you fuck with like?
Yeah. I mean, that one just does not make sense to me whatsoever. Spacely, I mean, he's obviously a fantastic player. He's again been around for a long time. Like you said, he was statistically the best on that team.
No, statistically the worst.
Oh, the worst. Okay. So I mean, definitely that's probably the biggest contributing factor as to why they've decided to make the change. But they were, like you said, top of their division. They were doing fantastic. He's one of the most experienced on their team, if not the most experienced on their team.
Right.
And I mean, from the sounds of it, he was pretty much the mastermind behind a lot of what they were doing as well, right?
Right.
So yeah, definitely an interesting change. And I mean, they haven't announced a pickup either, right?
They have Luca as a sub.
Yeah.
But they don't have an official player. I would have liked to see Spacely kind of drop back into a coaching role because, as we mentioned, has this wealth of knowledge and is an outstanding S&D player.
Yeah.
So I would like to see him kind of step back into that coaching, bring his on the battlefield, if you will.
Yeah. So I mean, the thing with that is, obviously, so Space is 22 years old, right? He's not that old. He's, like we just mentioned, he's been around for forever, basically. From what I can see here, since like 2011. He was on a team called Duked. Since then, he's been on Unite, FaZe, SB, Most Wanted, Elevate, Prophecy, like a whole bunch of these big teams, and he's been through the works. Like, he's done a lot of things, and he's accomplished quite a bit in his career as well. So like, at 22 years old, I feel like he's pretty much at his peak as well right now. I think he's last year he had a bit of success, and obviously getting onto Gen G and the way they've been playing this year, having a lot of success so far in this game. It's, like, is this somebody that wants to retire at this point, or maybe not necessarily retire, but even take a break and go and coaching. Like,
I mean, I'm looking at his team history right now. I would say that he's been on every major org except Optic.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, that's a pretty accomplished player. Like, he is young, 22, but in esports, 22 is still somewhat old.
Yeah,
mind-boggling.
Yeah.
But
Optic and Envy, those are pretty much the only two teams that he hasn't been. And I mean United as well, but they haven't been around for
they're such
forever.
A young org comparatively, that's kind of a fair comparison.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so what's next for him? I'm sure he would. Whether any statistic.
Your mic's cutting in and out quite a bit though.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me okay now?
Yep, there we go.
Like I said, statistically he hasn't been performing that well, but can only get from being around for all of these years.
Yeah.
I'm kind of interested to see where they go with that, or where he goes with that. Excuse me.
Yeah, no, for sure, and Spacely's also somebody who, he's got a Twitch account, he's got a YouTube account. I don't know if he's very active on either of those at this point, but
what's up, YouTube?
I definitely just tried playing a video of his by accident. So yeah, looking here, he's not really been uploading. He's never really has uploaded, but he has like 21,000 subscribers on YouTube. This is, and again, with him being around for a long time, I think he has the potential to be able to just go into content creation like we are seeing a lot of these players doing, if he's not able to find a team. Which, I mean, again, I would love to be able to see him get a team, because I do think that he's in a really good spot as far as his gameplay goes at this point, and his mindset and everything. Like he said, he does have a really good knowledge of the game and everything. So I personally would love to see him keep on competing. However, I definitely would understand if he doesn't make it onto another starting roster or something like that, if he didn't look into going down a different route.
Yeah, exactly. So do you have anything more to say about this before we move on to the next one?
About Spacely? No, not really. Just good luck.
Yeah. So would you like to move on to UYU and the dropping of their two players?
Yeah. So it was they dropped Spoof and Skies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Skies obviously in their starting roster, and Spoof was their substitute. So going back to the tweet that I mentioned earlier from Vandy, who was talking about the whole Accelerate thing, very controversially, I did see Spoof reply to that, not with anything of context really. He just said, I'm pretty sure, or something like that. Which, I mean, basically said it all though, right? Vandy was there tweeting about this other org that's basically just dropped all of the players who worked hard to get them there, and then and I mean, I guess it's a little bit different still, because I don't believe Spoof was ever really on the starting lineup for them, right?
No, he was definitely always a sub.
Yeah, so definitely a little bit different than the whole Accelerate situation. However, still somebody who's, he has definitely worked hard to get to where he was. Actually, yeah, no, you're right. So he was just a sub for them, and then now he's without a team. Which is interesting, because we haven't really seen anybody drop actual subs really, right? It's mainly just been people obviously dropping people from the main roster. So I would imagine that they have somebody in mind, or already have somebody that they pretty much have secured. So
I mean, yeah, I would assume like you wouldn't. I think every team is required to have a substitute, so they must.
Yeah, no, exactly. And so again, Spoof, he's been around for quite a bit as well. He's obviously an amateur player. He's I
just need to go let my cat in. 1 second.
Yeah, for sure. So Spoof's also 22 years old. He's been around for a little while. So as far as like the teams that he's been on obviously UYU. And actually, so looking at it here, so Stoney, just looking at it here, I believe he actually was on the starting roster at one point. I think he was.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I see here he was from November until January. He was on the starting roster, and then from January till March is when he was a substitute.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
But yeah, so I was just going through like again, he's 22 years, same as Spacely. The teams that he's been on. So he was on GGEA Orange, Team Allegiance, STDX, Lethal Gaming, Most Wanted, and the very familiar Riot Gaming. Back in the day, Riot Gaming NA, yeah. So you know, he's been through a few teams himself. Looks like for the most part he's been he hasn't moved around as much as Spacely, that's for sure, but yeah, certainly been on his fair share of teams as well.
Yeah. So they have picked up, get the name of the player to make sure Parzilion, is that how you say it?
Yeah, Parzilion. So yeah, they just obviously announced that a little earlier. So the tweet, UYU will be welcoming Parzilion to the starting roster for Fort Worth and onwards. We would like to thank Skies for his great work and attitude, but following a team decision backed by the org, we feel this is a move that helps us stay competitive in an incredibly tough division. So I actually have a funny little story about this roster change as well. So I don't remember if I told you about this happening, but so obviously we are expecting Vanny to be coming on at some point. He's fortunately got tied up with scrims versus EU right now, so but yeah, so last night I sent him a message, and I don't remember what the original message. Find it here. Oh, that was right. So I was asking him if he was going to have his face cam on while he comes onto the Discord, onto the podcast, right? He told me probably not, just because he's at the UYU house. So I was like, oh, no problem. And then he asked me what time he does to get him in the Discord. So I was telling him how I'd asked you for the timeline. And so then he messages me. So bearing in mind, we usually start the podcast, or we were planning to start the podcast today at 8:30, which we did. And he messaged me at 8:56 last night saying, hey, apparently we have like a really important team meeting tonight with our org, so I can't come on. I can literally talk tomorrow or any other time. I'm sorry, this is probably the shittiest time, lol. And then I think you've seen all the Rostermania news today, so we're kind of having a meeting with UYU. To which obviously I let him know, don't worry, the podcast is actually tomorrow. But yeah, I thought it was cool. Like, so obviously it was literally last night that they made this decision. And Andy was there literally like freaking out because he thought that he was bailing on us completely, but put him out of his misery pretty early. Yeah. So yeah, going back to it though, this is obviously the decision they came to last night, was picking up Parzilion for Skies.
Right. So I'm kind of interested to see where they again are right to kind of will they get one of these players like the free agents? Will they take a risk on a more unknown player? Kind of curious what's going on there.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, again, so there's definitely players out there. So the interesting thing is, we know for a fact that whoever it is that they're picking up, though, is also going to be a substitute. Because, I don't know if you knew this, but Parzilion was a midnight player as well. So they've literally taken him off of a starting roster. So there's no way that they're bringing him over as a substitute. If they are, then I feel like Parzilion doesn't know that at this point, and is probably not going to be the happiest when he finds out. If that does happen, though, just remember, guys, you heard it here first. But yeah, like it's it's interesting, right? Like, who is gonna just come to this team? And I mean, I know obviously it's still a really great opportunity to be a substitute for one of these teams, but like, I don't know, like who. A lot of these people who are free agents at this point are either already probably pissed off at the league because they've just been completely dropped by the rug, or they probably just want to be in a starting roster, and that is it, right? Because of more established household Call of Duty names, like the Parasites and the Spaceleys and people like that, like we mentioned before, right?
Right. So, sorry, I'm just kind of reading something. Wow. I don't know. I assume you're familiar with the Card Burner on Reddit and Twitter, and you know.
Yep.
I just kind of stumbled across his subreddit. He's talked a little bit about Genji. I know we kind of moved away from that a little bit, but I just want to just read what he's written here. Some orgs let the players decide on the roster and let them vote out other players if it's unanimous. Genji is one of those orgs and lets them do that. So when the 4 ganged up on Spacely, there was nothing much they could do about it. Base tweeted he's going to ride it out on the bench and not going to go to the open bracket. And that's smart because I heard he's guaranteed money in his contract and he'd lose that if he went elsewhere. So really, it makes no sense for Spacely to do anything at this point. He might as well just ride it out and get his money.
Yeah, no, that's very true. So I mean, it's definitely an interesting thing. Again, being on a team that was literally first in the division, and a lot of people, literally, like I saw it all over Twitter when it first was announced about him being dropped, where people were giving him so much props for being the mastermind behind that whole team. So having that kind of status within the community, surely there's a team out there, even like UYU before they actually picked up Pazelian, they obviously wanted a roster change. They wanted to pick somebody up. I think it just comes down to obviously paying the right price, because obviously that is definitely something that he can hold over his head at this point. But like, if you reached out to teams and were like, hey, you have an open spot, I'm an FA now, I'm being given all this credit for what we've accomplished so far with this team, now they just dropped me, I'm willing to come to you, but you got to pay me this money. I'm sure there's teams out there that would have done that.
Right.
But again, there's probably more to the story. I'm sure he probably has looked through some of his options, and that's the thing. So how long is the FA period?
I believe it ends tomorrow.
So yeah, that's the other thing, is he also has pretty restricted time to do that at this point, right? So yeah, I think it's interesting. I'm also like, I just really want to see and sorry, this is moving off topic, but I do really want to see who it is that Accelerate end up picking up, right?
Yeah.
So and I think that's definitely gonna be the biggest news. Well, it already is the biggest news of the whole Rostermania period, but I think it's going to answer a lot of questions, and it's going to really set things in place for us, how everything is going to look over the next couple of months, right?
So, sorry, I'm still kind of looking through the subreddit while we're talking, and there's some actually interesting things. This was posted 2 days ago. It says, FaZe didn't sell Zuma, so EU kept Pristini. Envy sticks after thinking about Pharaoh for app. Midnight players stuck on Midnight because MLG wouldn't let them go to another team together, and Midnight didn't pay their players, even at less than 1,000 a month. EG talked about Pharaoh for fellow, and I heard more about EU, but it sounded like boogaze. I guess that means not true. So I'll post it more if more people confirm.
Right.
Sorry, I'll go back to what I should be looking at. And
yeah, no, so I mean, definitely some interesting topics there, though. You know, especially like with the whole fellow thing. Obviously, that's where all of this kind of people who worked hard and ended up getting dropped started with the 100 Thieves. A lot of people weren't too impressed with them doing that, but I mean, I think it's safe to say that they made the right decision. And I think, and again, this is, you know, without being biased, this is completely different, really, to the whole Accelerate thing, right? Like, or even the Gen G thing with Spacely. So Spacely, sure, he might have been the underperforming player, but they did not need a change, right? They didn't need a change on that team. They were doing fantastic. Meanwhile, it was pretty evident that 100 Thieves were not performing very well. And so they did need a change, and that's what they did, and obviously it was for the best at this point. So, you know, is Fellow still a good player? Absolutely, he's fantastic, and I think it just comes down to that particular roster, and it just wasn't working with the people that they had at the time. But does he belong on a team within the Pro League? I think absolutely. I think, like I said, he's a fantastic player. He's also not been, well, I'm sure he's been playing for a while, but he's not been around for as long as some of these other players have, of course. And, you know, he's still well established within the community, though, for being a top tier player, and he's now been putting up some good numbers and doing some great things for the past few years at this point, right?
Right. Yeah. Are you ready to move on to the next roster move?
Yeah, for sure.
Would you like to go to let's go to EG?
Yep.
So for Cento, everyone's kind of seen to this point that he's professional. I would be interested to see him as an analyst. I'm not entirely sure if he streams. I've certainly never seen his stream if he does, but I would definitely be interested.
Sure.
I'm always I'm definitely for as many pros getting into content creation as possible. I feel like that really widens the availability and the, you know, who stumbles across it and ultimately is only does good things for the scene. So I'm definitely for that.
Yeah.
But in terms of what's next for him, maybe, like I said, analyst, content creation, or stepping out into the big scary world, which
yeah,
you know, a lot of these players, especially in Call of Duty, which is another kind of downfall, is, you know, these players leave high school, they don't go to college. Most of them, they have no real skills because they've spent most of their lives playing Call of Duty. So when it comes to stepping out into the big bad world, it is daunting, sure. But
yes. So I don't know if you saw it, but one of his tweets within that period of when he tweeted out saying that he was going to be retiring was that he was going to focus on different projects, and I think he did mention something about content creation. And I don't know how many people know this, but he is living in a house right now with MaDaC, who's the coach for 100 Thieves, Enable, who's one of the players for 100 Thieves, JCap, who is on United, and himself. I think that's it.
Right.
So, you know, he's got a lot of people around him who are still working within the community. Maybe, like you said, he goes into a coaching role, similar to, again, his roommate MaDaC. He's got a lot of knowledge behind him. So, right up here, actually. So, of course, for Sentinel, it doesn't tell me his actual age on this page, but he's also been around since like 2012-ish. He's played on Saw, Excellence, Illmatic, TR, obviously, was when they got their big break.
Right.
Team Revenge. He then played on Team Orbit or Orbit U-Sport, Elevate, Rise, Echo Fox, G2, and then ultimately EG. So, I mean, as far as, you know, compared to a lot of these other players, certainly not been around for as long. But like I mentioned, him and a few of those other players there got their big break on TR, which was back in AW, I believe, Advanced Warfare. and they really shook the whole industry or community when it comes to that, considering they finished second?
Yeah, it was second at Champs, wasn't it?
Yeah, second, which was, it was him, Remy, Nagafen, Facento, and Aqua.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, looking at those teams that he's been on pretty much ever since then, they're all pretty high caliber teams that, it just really shows how having that one good tournament really just propelled him into getting into those better teams and really putting his name out there, right? And I honestly, I've never really paid that much attention to Facento as outside of his gameplay, basically. But from what I have seen, and he's a pretty charismatic guy. He's obviously, again, he's living in a place where he has good people around him. Again, obviously, enabling MaDaC being on 100 Thieves, it's part of a day in their life at this point is content creation.
Right.
And then JCap obviously been been in the industry for a long time, been on Optic, been on United, been on Envy, he's basically been everywhere at this point. And again, a lot of these bigger orgs like Optic and Envy and United, especially now as well, all do a lot of content creation as well. And he actually, so I don't know if he still does, but he had a pretty successful YouTube channel himself, didn't he, back in the day? I seem to remember back on like Black Ops 2, I think he used to make quite a lot of videos and stuff.
I don't recall, but I mean, good for him if he did, and I would definitely like to see him revive that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, it's content creation is something that obviously your boy Hector Rodriguez has been a big pioneer of within the Call of Duty industry, but he's definitely starting to catch on with a lot of these other orgs and things like that. And yeah, I think it's never a bad thing to see another player going out there and putting the name out there to start making a themselves.
Yeah. And so obviously he retired, stepped down. In terms of players that have filled in his space, been in yet, but what I've kind of seen along Reddit and Twitter is that Attach is going to be joining them. So the roster would be, let me see, Goonjaw, Royalty, Bello, Exotic, and Attach, which that would be a pretty solid roster. Attach is a outstanding player, won champs with Denial. Was it 3 years ago?
Yep.
Only done great things on FaZe. Can't recall off the top of my head if they've won an event with him, but I mean,
FaZe was Attach.
Yeah,
for sure.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's only going to be an upgrade. Not to put Center down, but Attach is just such a phenomenal player.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, and again, so running back through a little bit of Attach's history. So he's been around for a long time as well, also the age of 22. So this is actually quite interesting since mentioning Spacely's age. We've had now two other players that are both the same age, and I mean, I would never say that. I do not think that Attach, for example, is anywhere near retirement, right? So I still think that Spacely has it in him. But anyway, back to Mr. Attach here. Obviously, like we said, he's on FaZe right now, but in his early days, there's no kind of record as to what year, but he was on a few teams in his early days: Fly Society, MapGen, XV, MV, Termination. Don't know any of those teams personally, but that's probably why it's all question marked as far as the years that he was on them as well. But then it was 2013 when he got his big breakthrough. He started on Elevate, then moved to Curse Youth. So this was back when there was a couple of youth teams. Right. Then moved to Curse Orange, Rise Nation, Denial eSports, which was, I think, when he really started to thrive. Obviously, I think, in fact, wasn't he not on the team with Jacob when they won champs?
Yeah, wasn't it Jacob, Attach, replays, Attach, replays. I cannot remember that fourth right now.
Clay, J-Cap, Attach, and Replays.
Clay, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, that was a roster that I remember when it got put together. I was thinking, like, what the hell is this? Like, how on earth is this even a thing? Which, I mean, I feel like, actually, thinking about it right now, I feel like a lot of people thought the same thing with J-Cap joining and United with Clay again now. Like, why are J-Cap and Clay on the same team? But, I mean... It worked, right? It definitely worked then. They won the biggest tournament of the year, and now they're obviously back together. But yeah. So as far as Attach goes, he's definitely been around the block. He's so his achievements we've got in World War II, 5th through 6th in the CWL Pro League Stage 2. They came 3rd at Champs. They won E-League COD Nation Challenge for Vets. I didn't watch that, but
I think where I remember one of my favorite clips of Ghosts was Attach trying to wallbang the bomb site. Is it Warhawk? Warframe?
Warhawk. Yeah.
Warhawk S&D. Like, it was the A bomb, and there was like the kind of L-shaped metal like fence wall thing around it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And he tried to wallbang through it, and he got like 8 hit markers, and then tried to run, and like they lost the tournament because they got ninjured. So.
Oh yeah, I do remember that. Yeah. Yes, that fence was a bitch for anybody who didn't play that match back in the map back in the day. Yeah. That fence was a bitch for a lot of people. I
don't remember exactly who was on that team, but I remember Realize they're definitely on there.
Yeah, I don't remember, but
yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, there was I remember there was a lot of frustration in that video for sure, because he even had time, if I remember correctly, to just literally run up there and actually shoot him normally.
Yeah, if he hadn't taken so long to like try and wallbang it.
Instead of continue to stand there and trying to wallbang it, he could have just ran up there, because even if he got off the bomb, I believe, and ended up killing Attach, I don't think he would have then had time to defuse it anyway. But
exactly.
Anyway, so sorry, just going back to J-Cap there for a second as well. We did mention him for a second about his YouTube channel. So interestingly enough, his first ever video on YouTube was 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. Title of the video: First Video Plus Joining Optic Gaming. And then but as far as his YouTube as of recent, he's not uploaded in the past year. And but he's actually right on the cusp, and he probably doesn't even realize this. He's got 98,000 subscribers right now, 98,911. So he's right on that cusp of getting 100,000 subscribers on his YouTube. Guy needs to start his YouTube back up. Get that play button.
Yes, he does.
That's a silver one, right? For 100,000.
I believe so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so I mean, overall, Attach, I think he would definitely be a fantastic pickup for who?
EG.
EG, that was right. For EG, I think it definitely improve their current situation, which, I mean, isn't really hard, unfortunately.
At this point, anything is an upgrade.
Exactly, and again, it's nothing to do with Vicento himself. It's just they need to do something, right. And they need to do it now. Now is definitely the time, and yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's definitely not too late, but it is the time, right? Same thing happened again with the 100 Thieves, right? The first week there were 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 1 and 2. It was, and then ended up bringing it back second week there to put themselves in first position at this point. Evil Genius is currently 8th in their division, 1 and 6. All they need to do is get into that top 4 mainly. That would obviously be their main priority at this point, and right. To be able to do that, Red Reserve's in 4th. Red Reserve and Optic, I guess, currently tied in 3rd and 4th position, who are both 4 and 3. So, pick up a couple of wins against those big teams, and it's definitely doable. And I think a player like Attach is somebody who can definitely get in there and help them doing that.
Right. So I guess we've saved the best for last, right? Have we missed it? Dylan talked about that. Yeah, I believe now we just have the big one.
The big one, exactly. Yeah, it's like, honestly, man, I don't even know what to say. Like, it's just, it's heartbreaking, it's wrong, and that's it.
I feel like we've touched on this at various points, like not gone into depth, but I feel like how can this be possible? How can they?
It shouldn't be. Right.
That's what it
shouldn't be
down
possible.
To. It shouldn't be.
And exactly, to just flat out answer the question, it shouldn't be possible. This is obviously something that we touched on with the whole franchising of things. Mm-hmm. You know, it's something that needs to be changed. And until it does change, I don't think we're in the right position to be moving forward and making these big changes to the league and stuff. However, again, the argument of the other side, maybe this is what we need to make those changes. But we need to do something. Something needs to happen for this to stop happening. And so my problem with that is it shouldn't take something as major as franchising or something like that to make these changes. This should already be a thing, right? Like we mentioned before, they are taking the right steps. They're taking steps forwards into changing things for the better. However, this is something that has been a problem for a long time. I feel like we need to. This should be like one of the top priorities on the list.
Right, I completely agree. And you know, as we've mentioned, this is people's livelihoods that are being messed with. So, oh, my cat just scared me. So, you know,
dude, imagine the New England Patriots making it to the Super Bowl, day before Super Bowl, they just get rid of their whole team.
Right. Unheard of.
That's literally what it is, right? Like, it can't happen. It like literally cannot happen in that sport. Or any other sport for that matter. You're not going to see Barcelona go ahead and drop the whole team right before the Champions League final. It's not a thing. And it shouldn't be a thing. So why is it a thing within Call of Duty?
Exactly. Why?
So it just doesn't make sense. And so, like, you know, just everybody on that roster obviously deserves a lot better. We got Brady. And I mean, so... The big thing as well, which I think we should definitely touch on, is what happened even before that with Fastballer, right? Obviously, Fastballer was, I think, one of their best players at the time. Ended up getting dropped or getting benched for Robbie, and obviously there was a lot of hands in the air about that one. Nobody was really happy about that happening to him. Yeah. Just the same way they weren't happy about 100 Thieves change. Like, you know, I get it. In general, people are not happy because they shouldn't be, right? Mm-hmm. But then, like, what, 2 weeks later, drop everybody, including Robbie, from the roster as well. Yeah. Like,
I think it kind of boils down to just a cash grab from the owner. Just
yeah, absolutely.
I saw basically I believe he's an undergraduate college student, basically meaning like there's no A's. And he really has no grasp on finances and management. And they were not paying their players properly, and yeah. They just really it's teams like this and organizations like this where, you know, it gives a bad name to Call of Duty and the CWL, and that's why.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, I know my webcam's shaking because my cat's like brushing up against my screen and it's shaking everything. I'm trying to get her to sit with me, but she won't. There we go.
Yeah, no, so going into what you were just saying there, like, yeah, absolutely, it definitely gives the whole community a bad name, and it's you know, it definitely hurts us. I think when we start then talking about these, like, going into franchising and things like that, things like this are going to be things that hurt us, right? Then when teams like Accelerate that want to stay in the league, and then they go out to try and speak to people who can invest in their organization, well, guess what? It's not going to happen because you did some dumb shit that's now like that's the first thing people are going to look at, right? Integrity, like, and that's what it all boils down to now. So an interesting thing that I've actually just realized, because I was just talking about Fastballer, they didn't actually drop Fastballer, so he's actually still a substitute on the roster as well. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's interesting. I'm excited to see what happens there. And also, so for anybody who's interested, I know Beezy has actually put a YouTube video out where he explains some of the stuff that happened. I personally haven't gotten a chance to watch it yet. I believe he just uploaded it either late last night or this morning. Did you get to watch it yet?
I watched the first minute or so, but unfortunately didn't get to watch the rest of it yet. I'm planning on this evening.
Yeah, so did you catch any of the main gist of it?
Basically, they're assholes. is kind of what I'm garnishing from, what I'm reading online and stuff.
Yeah.
I guess there was one guy that was part of management that was really nice, and he was kind of the go-between for the team and for the actual organization.
Right.
And okay, so let me read you this. It says, "Okay, sounds good. They did mention that if we were to proceed, the deal would be contingent on the guys getting paid their prorated salary for January, though. I don't know how much of a problem that would be, but I told them to talk to you." So sorry, but we back up a little bit. This is between the go-between guy and the org owner. So he says basically they want to continue with you, but you need to pay them the money you owe, essentially that. And this just-in-time guy, he says, they don't really have a choice because I own the slot. If they want to play highball, I can just drop them and sign new players. I feel like that kind of gives a little window into this fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, I mean, it's not good, is it?
No. I mean, I can understand. I guess that was either a Discord DM or a DM, some private message that you don't really anticipate getting. But even so, like, that's not how you should be talking about these people that you're supposed to be paying to play for you.
Yeah. Literally, like, basically the forefront and running your business for you, basically. So yeah, no, it's definitely not. And so that's the thing as well. Like, being in DMs on Discord or wherever it is just not an excuse, especially these days. Like, how many times have we seen at this point where things like this have come out of the DMs and made its way into the public eye, especially when then you go ahead and do something like this. Like, people have to understand that this is going to happen. If you're going to be an asshole, whether it's in DMs or not, it's more than likely going to end up coming out, and you're again gonna get bit in the ass for doing it. And so that's the other thing with the way that this whole league is set up at this point. Honestly, it wouldn't have surprised me if at the time Accelerate, like, if Accelerate didn't just have their place in the league basically, and they'd have done this, they probably would have just completely disbanded it like yesterday when this happened, right? Like, this would have just been the end of Accelerate, because like players can't trust somebody like this. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen, just because a lot of players want to get in the league and that's all they care about, and so obviously they're going to do that. But like, again, it's just things that need to be figured out and just can't keep on happening moving forward, because that's the thing as well. It's not the first time we've seen something like this happen either, right? So
yeah, absolutely. I think
there needs to be something done about it.
I see a lot of similarities between Accelerate currently and what Denial used to be. I remember, I think it was an H1Z1 Pro at the time in an H1Z1 league or something, saying, Denial hasn't paid us, we're leaving.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I believe his name was Pineapples. I don't remember.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's like Pineapples with a Q.
Yeah. Anyway,
I remember.
I see a lot of similarities between that and this, and
Sorry, you cut out at the end now.
Sorry. Players are just falling into the same traps over and over.
Yeah. No, exactly, and that's the thing. It's a lot of the time it is because there's somewhere along the lines the players or the org or somebody has not read the full terms and conditions of the contracts and things like that, or they've not thought about it thoroughly before signing on the dotted line. And yeah, like you said, they just keep on falling into the same trap. I remember a few years ago, there was a lot of talks about contracts and stuff like that, because going back a couple of years, a lot of these teams and orgs and players didn't actually use contracts, right? It was basically just a free-for-all, which was, again, it was a completely shit show. So, I mean, contracts are definitely a good thing. That's, one of the good steps that we've kind of taken within the industry. But, got to read what you're signing, man. Like, and you got to think, is everything that I need in this contract? As a player, you need to be like, if you can't do it, hire somebody to do it. There's plenty of people around, especially again these days. We have like literally eSports specialist lawyers and stuff like that out there that will look through the shit. They will do this shit for you. And again, if then you end up getting a contract that does work for you, you're gonna have the money to pay a damn lawyer anyway. Yeah. Do it.
I mean, and you even have people such as Scoots and sorry, I saw my mic cut out. That's why I stopped.
Yeah.
But I've often seen them on. I've often seen them on Twitter offering to, look over contracts before people sign them. So you don't even necessarily need to hire a lawyer. You can just go to one of these veterans, and they will help you out. These people in the scene that will help you.
Yeah.
You have to look for it.
That's exactly it, right? And there's, as far as the industry goes and the community, a lot of people often give a lot of flack because it is a community that tends to be filled with a younger audience a lot of the time, and also a lot of toxic people within the community, unfortunately. However, I mean, honestly, look through pretty much any esport community. We're online. It's always going to be like that, unfortunately. But, there are also a lot of good people within pretty much any esport community as well, right? And if you're going to somebody, like you said, like Sir Scoots, who literally has fuck all to do with you, like he does not care whether you get fucked over or if you get paid in the millions. Right. If you're going to somebody who has nothing to do with you, what would they gain by not actually helping you out? Exactly. Like if they say they're going to help you out, they're not then just going to go behind your back and go, hey, owner of Accelerate, good job fucking this guy over. I'm going to get him to sign tomorrow. Like, no, he's going to actually look it over and help you out, right? And it's just one of those cases where I think, having these younger people involved and things like that. Again, some of these people, obviously people who are in Optic, for example, have a lot more charisma and a lot more confidence than people who are on the likes of Accelerate. And that inexperience and lack of charisma and confidence is something that is obviously affecting these players and affecting their mindset when it comes to, okay, I'm in a well-established community that does have lots of resources and probably could literally just tweet. I probably don't even have to go directly to somebody. I could probably tweet out just myself from my own Twitter account and end up finding somebody who just comes along and says, yeah, absolutely, I'll do that for you. And not just, yeah, you'll get like 50 young 17-year-old kids who are like, yeah, I'll do it. But you'll also more than likely get somebody who's actually established in the community and knows what they're talking about, who will just volunteer, like you mentioned, right?
Yeah. And just to put it out there, if anyone is interested, Red Eye, another huge veteran in the scene. He just popped up onto my Twitter. His name was escaping me for a moment, but all these people, they will gain nothing from you winning or losing. So they're the people you want to look for. Anyway,
yeah.
Back to Call of Duty. I believe, now correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we have touched on all of the roster.
Yeah, so absolutely. So that's pretty much as far as we got so far. I give this another refresh, but yeah. So okay, so I guess the only other thing that we could maybe touch on is Midnight also, their coach Atura. He actually also went as an FA as well, which again is pretty interesting considering their position and how well they've been doing. Obviously, they're second within the Division A. We've not really spoken much about Midnight tonight. Right. We've spoken a lot about Gen G though, and yeah, Midnight are right there behind them. You know, Gen G had a lot of success, so have Midnight. Like I said, 5-2 overall in the league, putting them in that second place of Division A. Which, man, we touched on this last week. Division A is stacked, like stacked, and so. Like we said last week, Gen G and Midnight were not the people we were expecting to be on top. So for Midnight to be in second after the first 2 weeks of the CWL there, and now dropping somebody who I would say is a pretty essential part to their team, and also losing another player,
right?
It's gonna be interesting, right? And obviously we don't have to wait long. We do get to see some action next week. But they've got to, if you were right in saying that the FA period finishes tomorrow, they've got to move quick.
Right. I think between this week's show and next week's show, there's going to be a lot of roster movement because, well, there has to be because, you know, all these players that have made these changes, they want to compete in the Fort Worth pools. They need to, you know, make it clear what's going on.
Yep.
Which is, you know, very soon. And I believe next week we will have a nice rundown of all of the groups. I would love to kind of work with you to get some sort of graphic that we can show on screen as we're talking about each group, kind of talk about each person's prediction for each group. Maybe, I'm not sure how we can work that out, but I'd love to see that happen somehow.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, it's definitely something we can look into for sure. And yeah, I mean, obviously, like you said, there's definitely going to be a lot of roster changes. It's something I'm excited to see exactly what we end up getting out of these last 24 hours, couple of days, whatever it actually is, for the FA period. But that's usually what these FA periods come down to, right? A lot of it, it's like a week-long period, but then the first, like, 6 days, 5 or 6 days, there's not really anything other than like thousands of rumors and everything else, and then we obviously have the glorious COD intels and COD burners and all of these guys who come out and give us little teasers and try and give us the scoop on what's actually happening, and then it all boils down to those last 48 hours, and that's when all the major things tend to start happening. If you're lucky, if you don't have to wait for like an episode of Vision or something like that to come out.
I feel like it's kind of like, yeah, we've got a full week to make this change. We've got 6 days. We've got 3 days. We've got 2 days. That's kind of why it kind of boils down to the last couple of days, because they're like, all right, yeah, we dropped a player. We need to make a change. Okay, now free agency is over and we're fucked. Or like free agency is about to be over. Who the fuck can we get?
Yeah, and then they're always scrambling, and then that's when we get these questions of, why did you just pick this person up? Right. Is this actually going to work? And I mean, typically from what we've seen, well, not all the time, but quite a few times, to be honest. These teams, that make these crazy rosters, that we're like, there's no way this is ever gonna work. Like I said before, Jacob and Clayster being on the same team being one of those occasions. A lot of the times they actually end up working out, which is pretty cool. It's good as well to see, because typically it does mean, obviously, some of these players have to make changes to their playstyle and the guns that they usually run, whether it's SMG, AR, or passive or aggressive playstyles. And yeah, it's always good to see. And honestly, I think that's when we start to see like a lot of these bigger names really making a breakthrough and things like that, because we start to see them be like, have a much more like depth to their game, right? Being able to switch up what they're doing and being able to play in those different roles. You know, I mean, look at the likes of like Karma and Krim, both on Optic, obviously, but like, you know, we've seen Krim use SMGs. Now he's using an AR a lot of the time. Karma, like, has always been a flex player. Sometimes he's like, I remember obviously back in the day when he was running the M8 and like S&D and stuff like that, and capture the flag on Black Ops 2, and then obviously he's done his fair share as running an SMG. And I mean, you know, Karma's obviously an exception. He's the GOAT, as we all know. He's an outstanding player, but not everybody can do that. But I mean, same thing goes with the likes of. In fact, it wasn't Zuma. Zuma used to be an AR player, didn't he? Back in the day.
I believe so.
Yeah, I feel like on Ghosts, I remember him being an AR player, and now he's an SMG a lot of the time. You know, there's plenty of examples out there. And yeah, like I said, I think it really shows, like, it really starts to outline who are the best players out there. These players that can just adapt and really bring to the table what their current team needs, and just be able to fill whatever role, you know?
Right. Absolutely. Sorry, I'm just currently looking through the rules. I'm trying to find when the exact free agency ends. But this is a 52-page document, and I'm not.
Can you control F it?
I tried typing free and agency, and nothing came up.
Oh, of course.
I'm sure it's called something else, and as soon as I find it, I'm gonna be able to think of.
So, what if you? Because didn't the CWL Twitter tweet it out like when it first started?
Let's take a look. Anyway, so while we're doing this, something that we started last week, something I would like to make recurring.
So, real quick, actually, before you move on to that, because I know where you're going, and we've already kind of touched on this, so before we completely move away from it, coming back, I don't know if you saw this, but as far as the whole Accelerate situation, I saw that Hastro has actually said that he's going to help Accelerate go to CWL FW. Did you see that?
Yeah. I think that is out of his own pocket. It's not as Envy, his own pocket. I think that absolute phenomenal act of kindness from the man. And I actually met him once at an event in London, and it just doesn't surprise me. Just seems like one of those people that absolutely will do anything to help the progression of Call of Duty. I mean, Envy very much got in on the ground floor, and has supported. I believe they've had a Call of Duty team at least for as long as I've been following them, for I don't know, going on like 8 years at this point. So
yeah, they've certainly been around for a long time.
I mean, yeah, absolute phenomenal acts of kindness from the man. And,
and yeah, you pretty much nailed it on the head. Like, I think I have met Astro actually when I went to Gfinity in London. But yeah, it's so actually I've just found it here as well, by the way. Able to make changes up until Friday 3 p.m. 6 p.m. EST. Sorry.
So tomorrow at 6.
Yeah, exactly.
Around 20 hours from now.
Yep. So yeah, 6 p.m. EST, 3 p.m. PST, and 11 p.m. GMT. So
interesting.
But yeah, so going back to Astro, yeah, seems he's really awesome dude. Obviously, he's been within the community forever. Very successful guy within the industry. Didn't he used to? I feel like he used to play at some point or something like that, like way back in the day.
I believe probably around the same point. Hex did. I believe like COD 2.
Yeah, well, so I mean, obviously Hex never really was like played competitively. He just like played snipers basically. But I'm pretty sure that Astro, could be wrong. I thought that he played. I do remember back in this was Modern Warfare 3 days. They did this. I think it was like Monday Night Fights or something like that.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was such a good thing. I remember watching it back in the day where they had like so that I think it was like Astro. I don't remember who we went up against though. It might have been Hex, or maybe like Fwiz or something
Friday
like that.
Night Fights, not Monday Night Fights.
That makes more sense.
I just googled
yeah.
it.
They did Call of Duty head-to-heads basically back in the day. I remember there was like one week where it was like a firefighter versus a policeman or something like that, like something along those lines. And yeah, it was really good. So yeah, looking back at it here, I believe he was a player at one point. Back in COD 4, he played on a team called TBRE, obviously not a team anymore. He plays 4th at MLG National Championship 2008. He then was on Envy, and so obviously this was, I guess, when he formed Envy. They placed 2nd on COD 4 MLG National Championship 2009. They then, and I remember again watching Hex's podcast with Hastro, they briefly mentioned about a time where Optic and Envy kind of became one very briefly, and they were actually contemplating making that an actual thing, which would have been crazy. Like, think about that at this point.
Wasn't it Eon Optic Envy or something?
Yeah, exactly, Eon.
Yeah.
So he played on that team, which was in Black Ops 1, I believe. And he placed 1st at GameStop 2011 360 Championship. Then placed 6th so then it went back to just Envy. Placed 6th at MLG Dallas 2011, and then 13th through 16th at MLG Columbus 2011, and that was it. So he basically played in 5 tournaments and got top 6 in 4 of them. As soon as he dropped out of that, he was like, okay, I'm done.
Right.
Smart move, because now look at him.
Yeah.
35 years young, owns one of the biggest esports organizations there is. He's obviously got Call of Duty teams, he's got Overwatch teams, he's got do they still have a CS team?
Yeah, it's Nifty is actually on the NVCS team.
Oh, really? Yeah, so actually I got it here. So Call of Duty, CSGO, Overwatch, PUBG, Paladins, and Fortnite is the current esports that these guys are invested in. So yeah, nice guy, and he's apparently paying for Accelerate to get to Fort Worth, which I think is fantastic, and best of luck to those guys. I hope they go out there and beat whoever this new Accelerate roster is.
That would be the ultimate karma.
Oh, it would.
Absolutely. Okay. Are you about ready to wrap up the show? I'm a little disappointed that our guest kind of fell through, but it is what it is.
Yeah, so obviously update on that. Like I said earlier on the podcast, and I don't know if obviously everybody was here when I mentioned it before, but unfortunately Vandy got caught up with some scrims that they were playing against E United. I've been kind of messaging him backwards and forwards, and was trying to give me a time frame, which the last time frame he gave me was between 10:15 and 10:45. but I've not got a message back from him at this point. Obviously, we just hit 10:45, so I think so. One thing I did want to ask you, to maybe try and fill a little bit more time and maybe end up getting him, is. This was actually, remember at the start of the show, and I was before we actually launched it up, and I said to you I had something else that I wanted to include into the intro of things, and I completely forgot it and should have put it in the chat. Yeah. So what I wanted to do was incorporate a little bit outside of the Call of Duty world, and just ask you if first of all, a couple of questions. One, what have you been playing in the last week? And two, have you watched any interesting movies or TV shows?
Do you know what's funny? I was actually thinking about asking you the same question. So that's actually really interesting. In the past week, let me think. So, been playing League Play with you, obviously, and
oh, really?
Typically, you can find that streamed right here at twitch.tv/MaDaC. And
famous plug.
And yeah, absolutely. Just if you've got Twitch Prime, if you've got an Amazon account, go ahead and sub right now. I certainly am a sub, and help us support great content like this. Anyway,
ASMR streams.
Oh God, please no. I have been playing a little bit of Smash Bros on my party. I do love having some friends over on the weekends, having a few brews, and a little Mario Party. It is possibly the funniest game I've played in a long time.
Yeah. So first of all, I didn't know you played that. But second of all, so one of the things that me and Anna have been talking about for a little while now is the Switch, and we've not pulled the trigger yet, but it's definitely something that I think we invest into at some point. And yeah, that's so at the place where I used to work, we had an office Switch, so I used to do sales, so we would go out and we were actually doing door-to-door sales at the time, so we'd go out, we'd be pounding the pavement for hours and hours upon end, and then we'd come back to the office, wrap up the day, and then sometimes stick around and play some Switch, and yeah, we had I forget the name of it. There's one where you're working in the kitchen and you got to do teamwork together to get the meals to go out on time and stuff like that. And then there was also one of the Mario Kart ones, which it was a lot of fun. I was actually pretty good at it, surprisingly, considering I'd never played the Switch before at that point. So
yeah, as I was about to say, next week I definitely will be playing. Sorry, I'm just watching my mic cut out. It's incredibly frustrating. I would be playing Modern Warfare Remastered. For anybody that doesn't know, it is free, available now on the PlayStation Store.
Yes.
Anybody that is a PlayStation Plus member, I believe that's how it works.
Yes, it is. So if you're a PlayStation Plus member, you basically can download Modern Warfare Remastered completely free as of, I think it was March 3rd. I think it is only for a certain period of time. However, once you've downloaded it, you do get to keep the game. Right. So if you haven't done that already, and if you're not familiar with what a remastered exactly is, basically Call of Duty 4. So big, massive throwback for all you youngins probably never played it. Go back. It's one of, I think it is my favorite game still, actually, to be honest.
Yeah, I was about to say the same. Probably hundreds and hundreds of hours into that game. And I'm very much looking forward to playing it on the PS. The reason I didn't pick it up originally is just a purely financial. I had money.
Well, yeah, and you had to buy Infinite Warfare at the time, right? I did that. I bought Infinite Warfare. I loaded Infinite Warfare up. I played 3 maps and then never played it again. So I did, however, play quite a bit of Remastered during that year. And I would be more than happy to join you on that game at some point this week.
Sounds very good to me. So,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, what about you? What have you been playing? What have you been up to?
So as far as what I've been playing, I've basically been playing. I've just basically been playing, obviously, Call of Duty, again alongside you. I see rumors in the chat saying hell yeah, remastered. Maybe we can get you involved as well, rumors, if you're around.
Oh yeah.
And so yeah, I've been playing a lot of League Play, obviously with you. We played that a few nights on stream. As I briefly mentioned and you mentioned earlier, we had a lot of fun earlier on in the week, where some of our viewers were in the chat and setting some challenges for us, which you guys can do too if you do join in when we're playing some video games. By all means, go ahead and do that. We had some ASMR go in. We had a goodbye song for Stoney when he decided to get off.
I highly recommend to any viewers checking that out. I believe it.
Yeah, there are clips, and both in my Discord, which you can find a link to underneath the screen. Underneath the stream, in one of the panels, you can join the Discord. Stay connected there, and then. But yeah, it's also obviously on the Twitch channel as well. So yeah, played a lot of Call of Duty. Like I said, I was off for the past 2 days as well from work, and I on yesterday I think I played a little bit of poker online, which is something that I've just been getting into as of recent. Never really played poker growing up or anything like that. I played once at my uncle's house, and that was basically just him taking my money. So
is that something you do on stream?
So no, I've not played it on stream yet. Just I don't think I'm at that level. I feel like it's just going to open me up to a lot of people telling me that I suck, which I'm not, like I said, ready for yet. I am, like I said, obviously trying to learn the game. And I think I've got like a really good basic understanding at this point. But as far as like in depth and like later games, so I'm good at basically playing like pre-flop, which is before the first 3 cards get put out, for anybody who doesn't know. It's just once I get the flop and flop, that's when my decision making isn't always the best. And sorry, so for anybody wondering about that, the clip that we were talking about, Rumors did just post one in the chat there as well, so thank you for that, Rumors. And sorry for getting timed out the first time. So yeah, played some poker. Didn't play too much, but I went up for I think basically $1 because I had basically just played for like I think it's 2 and 4 cent stakes right now. Again, while I'm trying to learn the game. So yeah, been playing that. And then as far as movies go, did you mention movies? I don't think you even went into that. Yeah. So as for myself, as far as movies, I actually just rewatched all of the Harry Potter movies. Obviously being British is something that we do. Oh, yeah. Yeah, just rewatched literally from number 1 all the way through to the end one. Number 8, technically, I believe it is. Or 7 part 2, if you want to be technical. Yeah. And then as far as other movies, I don't think I've really watched any, but what I have been watching is a little TV show that you may have heard of called Shark Tank. I don't know why, but yeah, I just started watching it. It's obviously on Netflix. It's like from season 7 is the first one, I think. And yeah, so I started watching that this week as well, and that's been a lot of fun. It's you know, I used to work in sales and stuff like that, so certainly something that I'm interested in.
I just really love Shark Tank. It's not like a regular show for me. I do watch it. It's right. Pretty funny to watch. But in terms of movies, the most recent movie I watched was Spider-Man Into the Multiverse. It was right. It's a really good movie. I would really recommend it. I believe it scored very highly by critics. TV shows. I'm currently watching a show called Bull. Which is about a guy who's not a lawyer, but he like is a psychologist and helps in the courtroom. I just kind of put it on in the background. It's not like I'm super into it. It's just on kind of.
Right. Yeah. So and actually, I that is something else that I've been watching is Suits, the newest season.
Love that show.
Have you? Yeah. Yeah, I love it. It's so I've got like the season pass or whatever it's called on Apple TV. I get each episode whenever it comes out the next day. So yeah, definitely been watching that as well, and been thoroughly enjoying it. However, so funnily enough, I literally said to Anna when I was watching, I think it was like the first episode of so actually I think it's like the second half of this season, because that's how they do it in Suits. They release half of the season, wait 6 months, and then release the other half. That like, oh my god, like I just love this show, like it's just so good, blah blah blah. Like literally was like just really bigging it up, and then within, I think it was 24 hours, if not like an hour or something like that, of me saying that, I saw news that the next season is basically going to be their last season. So that was fantastic. So yeah, that's something else that I've been watching. I don't know if it's finished again or not yet. Actually, I think there was like one more episode maybe. So yeah, I'm not too sure.
Interesting.
So you're saying so the other one that you mentioned though was Ball, because I feel like I'd be interested in that.
Bull, like a bull with horns, like a male cow.
Oh, Ball. Okay. And is that like on Netflix or anything?
It's on Amazon Prime Video.
Okay.
Yeah, it's okay. That's how I'd describe it. It's okay. Like, I just kind of stumbled across it as I just got done watching House, actually,
right.
You know, the medical show, and I was just kind of looking for something to watch.
Right.
And yeah, it's all right. My next big thing I want to get back into though is Game of Thrones.
Yes.
I've watched the
trailer.
first season a bunch of times, but I've never really seen. I think I've seen up to the third season, but never past it. I don't really know why. I think it's just because you need to be paying attention at all times.
Right.
I'm just someone that like I like to kind of drift in and out. You know, sometimes fall asleep watching a show, and you know you don't really care that much. But that's definitely one of those shows that you want to be intently watching, and yeah. So I believe we have an update on our guest.
Yes, so I'm just trying to add him into the call right now.
Perfect.
And it's I think I've got to add him as a friend, that's why.
Okay.
So yeah, we've got Vandy coming into the call right now, guys. The long awaited and overdue guest. Finally done with his scrims, I guess. So very good news. We're gonna get him in the call as soon as possible here. Like I said, just gotta wait for him to add me. So yeah, we've got the UYU coach. Yeah, exactly.
I see him in the Discord.
Yeah, so he's in the Discord, but to add him to the actual call, he actually accepts me and Discord, which I just message him. There, not done that yet.
So we do have a bunch of questions lined up.
Yeah.
But if anybody does have any other questions, feel free. And just so you know, people can see your Discord on stream.
Yeah, I know. I don't really have any way around that right now.
That's okay.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, so if anyone doesn't have any questions, please.
Oh, and rip.
Hello?
Hey, Vandy.
Hey, what's up? Can y'all hear me good?
All right, we're back.
Yeah, we can hear you. Sorry about that, Stoney.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay, so we do have Vandy in the call. Welcome, Vandy.
What's up?
Welcome.
Vandy or Jack?
Either's good. Probably Jack.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so we finally have Jack in the call. Jack, how are you doing?
Doing good. Rostermania was a bit crazy.
Yeah.
Yes. We we've basically been touching on all of that while obviously waiting for you to.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Here, but...
Sorry it took so long. I didn't know that we were like
everything
that happened today would happen.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with the new pickup there, I'm sure you were desperate to get some scrims in. And when do you guys actually fly out to Fort Worth?
Right now we're at the UYU house. I'm here with the night, and I think we leave the 13th. We go to Dallas.
Nice. Nice.
Is the UYU house in Columbus?
No, I think it's somewhere in Georgia.
Oh, okay.
Like around Atlanta.
Okay.
Nice. And so, are you fully moved into that house, or are you just that temporary?
No, we more or less go here to like boot camp and stuff.
Okay, nice, awesome. So yeah, like I said, we have obviously been through quite a bit of stuff here already, but I think we will kind of backpedal a little bit. But first of all, obviously we do have a few questions for you. One of those questions that we wanted to start off with before we kind of got some of your opinions on the whole Rostermania situation was I wanted to just touch base on a little bit more about you to start off with, and basically just ask you like how did you become like who you are today?
I used to play, and then I kind of realized that it was gonna be a little too hard, and it was just too stressful. And then I kind of went into just like coaching teams in like Black Ops 3.
Right.
I coached a few amateur teams. I coached like the Lethal team. That was like the best like amateur team towards the end of BO3. And then going into IW, they kind of met up with STDX, who was like the best amateur team at that time. And they kind of like made a super roster that was like Believe, Nova, Mayhem, and Spoof. And then they were STDX throughout IW. Then they joined Allegiance, and like they got top 12 at champs in IW. I coached them there. I coached them through the second half of IW, and then we went into World War II. They got picked up by GGEA. They were GGA Orange, and I coached them throughout World War II. Then I think the infamous like the season 1 or the season 2 qualifier, played against Tainted Minds, went last map and we lost for the Pro League, which was really tragic. That was that was, I felt like it was in the bag right there, and then I don't know, that was like our second chance to really make it. We played like the online qualifier for the Pro League in IW, and we didn't make it through the online part. Like all these other teams had boot camps in the Infinite Warfare one. The org wasn't able to send us out to a boot camp, so we kind of just got like hosted on. Even though we felt like we were better than all the teams that like qualified. Like I think the team that made it through the IW qualifier was Era Eternity. It was like fastball in them, and they went to the LAN qualifier and literally didn't win a single map. They got blown out. It was kind of it was kind of tragic to see. But so then after World War II, or after we lost in the season 2 qualifier, I kind of stopped coaching. Because like I don't know, choking the Pro League like that when it was like just so close, it's kind of tragic. And then towards the beginning of this game, Mayhem kind of hit me up about like the roster, and Gorgo Knight was originally on the roster in the beginning of the game. That's when we thought it was 4v4, and then we had dropped him, and it was Nova, Mayhem, Spoof, and Proto. That was for Vegas, and then they did okay. They played in the pool play like qualifier, so they started in pool play at Vegas, and they did okay there. I think they got like top 16, so like we secured our spot for the PLQ. Things weren't really going good in practice, leading up to the PLQ, and literally like 48 hours before the roster lock, we released Nova and picked back up Gorgo Knight, which people kind of saw as like a little bit like scumbaggy at the time, but things just like we did not think that we could qualify for the Pro League with that roster the way things were going. And I think it was a pretty good change. I feel like we needed another like aggressive player, and Gorgon really helped us out. Then we
and I mean, anytime you drop any player, people are always going to give you that same opinion, right? They're always going to turn against you for a week or two, and then when they see that you're actually doing well, then they're like, "Oh, that was a good move, good job, guys." That's when you start to actually get the credit, right? So,
it's
sorry.
Like, no one really knows exactly how like a team functions. Like when people see somebody gets dropped, they're like, "Oh, they're such a good guy," but like, you never really like understand how like practice works and how like the team works.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Like viewers, you don't see what happens in scrims. You don't see the comms. You don't see like all of these other things that really plays a big part of the team. Like typically, they just see the KD at the end of the map. So
yeah, you never really like some people unless you watch like a certain map over 5 times, you wouldn't exactly know what exactly is happening, like what each player is doing. Like it's a lot of complicated stuff that goes into like some game modes. And around that time, we just didn't think that we could qualify with that roster. No offense to Nova, like I think he was still a good player. It's just we needed a different type of player for our team to qualify. But yeah, we went to the Pro League qualifier. We lost like our very first match versus Imperial. That was kind of when we realized that we sucked at S&D, and we were like, whatever, scrap however we were playing at S&D. Like let's just play random. Let's just play like it's wagers. And not a lot of the community knows about this, but I think around that time the stun glitch happened, where like if you switch your class off the beginning of a round or a map, then you could have 2 stuns off the break. So we kind of learned about that pretty fast before a lot of other teams, and that really helped us out in S&D because I think you could have 2 stuns like 2 different times in a game, like for each player.
Right, yeah.
And it helped us out. It helped us out a lot getting ahead in terms of that. And then we beat we beat Red Reserve, which was a crazy match. Then we beat Movie Star Riders. Then we beat Mind Freak, and that Mind Freak match was pretty crazy. And then that's when we qualified through groups.
Nice.
Yeah, but the Pro League qualifier was that was like the most nuts thing like I've ever experienced like in esports. It was just you could see emotions just everywhere every day.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine it's obviously, I mean, look at like the FaZe roster obviously not end up making it to the Pro League, and it's basically it's the whole year, right? Like I think anybody who's within the community will have seen like Parasite's tweets as well, for example. I know he's obviously been in the industry for a while now. He's had his ups and downs, to say the least. But I know he's been putting in a lot of work. He's been trying to change his image as a whole, and I just seeing the kind of emotion that he was pouring out on Twitter, pretty much sums up how it would be there in person as well, right? I can only imagine it's the same kind of thing, but 10 times worse.
It was just insane, like the environment. Like you could see teams when they lost certain matches, like they would just like it was just so serious. Like I remember after FaZe had a horrible start in their group, they sorry, Gorgonite's laughing. After FaZe had such like a bad start in their group, I could see like the FaZe like coach and manager like huddle up into a corner. They're like, all right, we gotta switch roles right now. Replays back to ICR. We're moving Priest to a SOG, and they had out their laptop and everything. It was crazy. I remember EXG. I think they were like in a tiebreaker or something. Like they had to win a certain match. They had like a horrible day. Like they lost their match. That if they won that match, they would qualify. Then they scrimmed after that because they're like, we suck. And they played like 20 maps and they lost every single map. And they went into like a tribunal like circle, and they were like just talking about issues, just passionately, vehemently. Like it was, I don't know, it was just a crazy atmosphere. People were
for sure
trying to get every advantage they could. No one was really like I don't know. It was the most insane thing I was a part of. It was nice to not have to go through bracket play. It's just yeah. I guess we can get onto it later, but like it just kind of sucks that the way that the rules are right now, the POQ is just not as important as it was due to like some like you can just people qualified like 45 days ago and then they're no longer in the league.
I actually brought up your tweet earlier on in the show that you tweeted last night, where you kind of went over that the like 45 days and what was it, like seven series later or something, and now they've lost it all basically, right? But yeah, for sure we'll definitely touch it. And in fact, so that was actually the next thing that we were going to kind of transition into, was your kind of thoughts of the whole Rostermania so far. So I mean, by all means, we can definitely hop straight back into that whole accelerate situation, because it's a huge one. And we kind of touched on it. We were basically saying, because we were also talking earlier in the show about like franchising and things like that within the industry, which obviously has been a big topic well for a few years, but certainly more so I think as we progress and for sure. And we were basically saying how, little things like that where like orgs can just drop the whole team after 45 days of being the team that just got them in that position in the first place. those are the things that we obviously need to figure out before we go into franchising and things. And until things like that get sorted, I don't think that we're really in a position where we're going to get these big like investors into the industry that are going to want to actually be here, right?
Yeah, it's definitely odd. You have like they're giving so much power to organizations that didn't have to like pay for the spot in the first place. Like they're giving like Overwatch League like power to like EXG didn't really have to buy out their spot. They didn't have to pay 20 million for a spot, and they gave them that responsibility, like just a ridiculous amount of power. And I'm kind of friends with pretty much the whole EXG team. Like in terms of the teams that qualified from the POQ, EXG, Midnight, and EXG Midnight. What was the other amateur team that made it? Oh, EXG Midnight and I'm trying to remember.
E6?
Oh yeah, E6. Like those are the
E6,
teams that we scrimmed the most. Like that was like a circle of teams that all we did was scrim each other. Like we didn't really get pro scrims.
Nice.
So us all qualifying through group play was kind of like it was pretty cool. Like like a lot of these pro teams, they've had pro scrims since the beginning of the game. Like they've had a lot of advantages. They had boot camps, like a comfortable salary. They all had they were all in a perfect place to qualify. It's just
exactly
POQ, the people that cared more, that wanted the most, made it, and it seems like that is just irrelevant now. Like I understand, maybe a team's underperforming, but you should not be able to replace every single member on that roster. Like maybe one or two people, maybe three. Like that's a stretch, but all five, like it's basically not even a team anymore.
Right.
And exactly, and so like one of the things that I was saying as well about the whole again, like the rules and what we should be moving towards instead of kind of taking steps backwards. We've seen this happen before, right? We've seen teams do outstanding, get themselves in a great position, and then 2 or 3 weeks later or months later, they just end up getting dropped by their organization. And like I said, we've already been down this path, and then correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we actually made changes so that, like you said, organizations could only make certain changes, like a certain number of changes within periods and things like that. And then now we just seem to have gone backwards. And the crazy thing to me is, you know, I personally think that this is one of our best years. I think we have got a lot of good rule sets in play. Obviously, we've got a fairly decent game, one that a lot of people enjoy, certainly a lot more than World War II. But then there's just these little things like this that just really set us back like 5 steps at the same time, right?
Yeah, it's kind of sucks. Like World War II, it was such like kind of like a letdown for spectators. Like I'd watch the Pro League and I would just like see like a series, and there'd be like, I don't know, like 13K viewers. It'd be like between two like mid-tier teams, and all of a sudden like the S&D starts and there's like 10K. Then all of a sudden the Ardennes Forest CTF starts and it's like 6K viewers. It's like no one wants to watch this.
It's crazy how Ardennes Forest just like everybody hated that map.
The only thing that was even watchable was just like the hard point, and I guess maybe some S&Ds. S&D in that game you could argue is a little bit better than S&D in this game, but
some aspects of it, for sure.
It's just it was just not a fun game to sit down and watch. It was just inconsistent too. Like from a like coaching perspective, like I'd be coaching a team, and then one day we'd play a good team, and we'd like blow them out. And then the next day we play them like the same hosts, same maps, and they would blow us out. Like it was just, I spent too much time trying to think it all out in my head, like understand it. It was just the game. It was just a crazy game.
So backtracking a little bit, you qualify through the PLQ. You know, you're coming into the league. What are your expectations, first of all, of the league, and then like what are your expectations of the team in the league?
I would say that our first week, obviously, we made like the roster change, which a lot of people didn't like on Twitter. We dropped Spoof. It was kind of I don't really want to talk too much about it, but it was kind of a thing that I guess we had to do. Spoof is like, I don't know anybody that's earned it more than him. Like he's literally played every year. He's like achieved the most of like any amateur, and it sucks. Like what happened, but we just kind of have to like look forward, I guess. But we went into the Pro League our 2 weeks with only 3 scrims. Like we only played 3 full scrims with Zinni, and we had a role switch. Like Caesar Skies had to switch to from an ICR to a MaDaC, and then Zinni was switching from a MaDaC to an ICR. So yeah, we were hoping for the best, but we were like, but kind of expecting like the worst. And 3 and 4 wasn't that bad in our 2 weeks, considering like we just couldn't win a search. Like we were the worst search team, I think, like at the league those 2 weeks, except besides EG. But yeah, we just could not win a search at all. But yeah, we turned it around a bit. I feel like all of our matches were like close. Like our optic match, like both of our hard points, like we won one hard point, the other one was super close. The control we choked. The Gen G series, like it was just S&Ds that pretty much just lost us every series. I felt like in terms of all the teams there, we were like top 3 in terms of just hard point and control. Like, but S&D, there's 2 of them in a series. You have to win them.
Yeah,
exactly.
But yeah, I was expecting for us to do okay, but I did not. I think our division's a lot harder than Division B. No offense to Division B, but like if you look at the last place team in our division, like it's EG. Look at the players on that team. They just picked up like, obviously it's a rumor, but they just picked up Attach. So
yeah,
I mean and then look at like Division B, like one roster got completely scrapped like due to their like performance, and then like one roster is like, I think second last place is E6, and they didn't really look too hot either. But I feel like most people could say Division A is just like was on a different level in Division B.
Yeah.
But I feel like we did pretty good for the teams in our division.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you guys finished in that joint 5th place, right? With Luminosity. You guys nudging ahead of them on the map count, being 12 and 16 versus 15 16. So yeah, I think you guys obviously came out and did what you needed to do. You're right on the cusp of obviously being in the top half of the division. So like, obviously we still got we kind of touched on this last week, we still got a lot of Call of Duty still to play throughout the year. So I guess like, what are your, other than obviously the roster changes and things like that, is your role in as a coach, what are your plans moving forward to get you into that top half of the division, obviously aiming for that first spot?
Definitely just try to get better at search. I feel like with Parzelion, we kind of upgraded our team a little bit. I feel like he's more of a disciplined, smart player. He had, like, obviously he was on like probably arguably like one of the best teams in this game, Midnight. And like he definitely has a lot of insight in terms of control and search for us that we were just lacking. And I feel like going into Dallas, obviously we don't have that much time to practice for it, but it's just one event of like a few that we have left, and we still have like like I think it's 1 week of cross division play, then another week of cross division play, and then like it's the break. But
exactly.
Yeah, we definitely just need to. I felt like we made a pretty good change. Skies was like a phenomenal player, but at this high of a level, you kind of need to start, like, all 5 players on your team need to be engaged and like involved in the learning process and like helping each other get better. And Caesar was just not, like, I guess, quick enough at like learning certain things he needed to. He's definitely deserves to be in the league, like on most teams, but for our team specifically, like we needed certain things that he just couldn't bring right now. But I feel like he could do a lot for a team. Like I feel like a team definitely needs like his like certain talents and skill, because he individually he's insane. It's just he just needed to learn certain things quicker. But yeah, I feel like Parzelion should help out our team a lot, and it helps Zinni return to like using a MaDaC too. So I feel like that was more of his like true role. I don't think that we should have had him running an ICR like in the first place, especially at the Pro League. But yeah, I'm glad that we have what we have now, for sure.
Yeah. So by the sounds of it, you guys already feel a little bit more comfortable, just having done that little change that you've already done. I believe you still waiting on an announcement for a substitute for your team as well, of course.
I'm
yeah. So
we're
just
sure on what we're gonna do with the sub spot yet. I feel like there's like we still haven't seen like 2 rosters announced yet, so we don't even know.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm sure
we only got like
the
a day left
thing...
too.
Right.
Actually, yeah, tomorrow's the 8th. Wow.
Yep,
crazy.
Tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern time. We were talking about it earlier. So,
2 teams
yeah,
decided. That's nuts.
Yeah, like I was just saying, I think this whole Accelerate thing obviously just really threw a spanner in the works for any team that was obviously trying to make any changes or anything like that. So
I feel bad for the players of MaDaC too. Obviously, it's great that we got Parzelion, but it's like the organization couldn't really get their I don't know if I'm allowed to curse, but they couldn't get their stuff. They couldn't get their stuff or shit together like as a business, and like the players just they didn't really like what they were offering. So there were certain things I think with like 1 or 2 players on the team that they had to stay under the org. So the rest of them like they wanted to go to a different org, I guess, and they couldn't really. But yeah, like I guess every team now is getting their own piece of like the midnight like super cake.
Yeah.
But yeah, it kind of sucks that like a whole roster, like an elite team, is like getting ripped apart. But like I guess for if you're like a COD fan, like it looks like it's gonna be better. Like each team, if you're like Genji or us or I don't know, there still could be like 1 or 2 teams that get a player from that team. But like everybody's making an upgrade, so this should make like a lot of teams better instead of just having like another like elite team in the mix.
So obviously, like we just mentioned, we don't have a whole lot of time left with this FA period, but who would you say is like the best pickup that there could be right now for any team?
I mean, I think Brack, he's like one of the better MaDaCs that I've seen in this game. I feel like he's like really underrated. I don't know. I feel like a lot of the big teams, like if they would have made a change, that they would have said something by now, or there would be something that we've heard. So I'm guessing the new EXG team will be made up of some of the old Midnight players, and maybe 1 or 2 players that didn't make the Pro League, like a North American Pros. And then I have no clue with the Midnight roster, to be honest. I know that there's a rumor that Saints is on the team, Saints and Llama.
Right.
I think that's like what the current thing is, but yeah, it's absolutely nuts. Like it's weird because I think like EXG it's like they're dropping or they're like letting go of players before they even like have people signed. Like I don't know. It's very odd.
One observation that I made earlier as well is, so obviously they also made a pretty controversial change a couple of weeks back with the whole fastballer and hobby thing, and when this announcement that they dropped to the team, nothing about fastballer has actually been mentioned, so he's actually technically still on the roster as a substitute.
So I saw in the rules like one player, like if you drop your whole roster, that one player must remain as a sub. But
of course,
Easy said
that
Fastball, apparently, since EXG is keeping money from Fastball, that he denied the sub thing. So what happens now? Like if you have to have a player on the roster in some form and none of them agree to, like does that mean that they have to keep like some members that I have no clue? It's so weird.
I don't know if you saw, I assume it was probably while you were scrimming, but Adam from MLG, he actually tweeted something along the lines of, just because you don't see it doesn't mean I'm not acting. So we kind of took that as, MLG in some capacity is probably stepping in and doing something to penalize or, I don't know, kind of act against what they're doing, because the whole community, like everybody just sees how crappy it is for the players. Like there's no denying it.
It's just like at first, like I think everybody saw the rumor of like at first EXG would be like some of the old FaZe team, which I just thought like just so ironic. Like EXG literally beat FaZe when it was all on the line. Everybody was like blood, sweat, and tears. PLQ bracket play, Passion Pit, like they beat them, and it would just be weird if like like they got their spot and FaZe bought them out, but like obviously I don't think that's happening. But it's just still weird for players that didn't make the pro league that they probably beat to just take their spots. Obviously they weren't performing that well in the league, but you got to think about it. Like there's 22 matches I think in total per team, and they've only played 7. It like
they're not performing well.
they
So
made a
look at
roster
what you
change
can do
midweek. Like I don't know,
make
it's
it a
just
good team, right?
It's completely unfair.
Yeah, no, it really is, and again, it just really boils down to there has to be a change, right? And when it comes to the rules, and we need to figure something out, not only for that franchising route if they do decide to end up going down that route, which obviously isn't going to happen this year at this point, but also for the fans, for the players, just everybody in general is going to benefit from having these rules in place, right? So
I hope that they definitely either get their spot back or they get like some money. Like
Right.
It's just like when you put that much into the game and effort and just work and time and you get it, like I think like the math on it, I'm pretty sure right now they've made maybe 10 or like somewhere around 15K like just so far from the league. So I mean that's good, but like when you make the pro league, like you're thinking like I don't know, like you're definitely thinking that you're making way more guaranteed that year. Like people were planning, like they told their parents about this, like I'm about to like have this. Like people I know
are
BZ
moving
in his
across
video,
country.
BZ in his video said something about like he promised his parents like certain like rent money and stuff. So like you're kind of toying with careers, and there's no like severance or anything like that. Like they didn't have like obviously it's one thing if you get dropped and like you get your whole contract paid out, which I think is something that some teams have, but like it's sad to see people criticize like the EXG team over like their contract choice, like like if like this is your guys' fault for not like reading your contract. But I don't think a lot of the community understands like when you're an AM team, in order to get to events, you actually have to sign with the org. Like you can't just go there unless you have like a decent, like unless you're like well off. Like that team, they weren't even gonna make it to the event at Vegas if they didn't sign with that org probably. Like they only have one other org. And they signed with them like a week before Vegas, and they signed for such a long term because they pretty much forced them into it. So it's just like I feel like a lot of the community and people like outside COD are seeing this and judging it. I don't think they understand like the certain positions that AM teams are put into when they're signing contracts. Like you're pretty much forced to give something up in order to get to these events, to get pro points, to even make it to the pro league qualifier.
Right. Yeah, because that is something that we actually touched on earlier as well, because that's what we were kind of saying was, there's a lot of resources out there these days where you can get people to look over these contracts for you and things like that. But again, and actually you've just basically opened up a whole different side to it, which is, as we were talking about before, there's always two different sides, and there's a lot of things that we don't see from behind the scenes that are happening, right? And because like you say, from the community's point of view, it is just a case of, well, you guys are idiots, you should have seen this in the contract, blah blah blah. And again, we were kind of saying that they probably should have looked over the contracts and made sure that these kind of things were put in. But like you said, it's never taken into consideration. Well, okay, but these guys, like you said, they signed a week before the event, and if they didn't sign, then they wouldn't have even had the opportunity, and if they didn't have the opportunity, then they wouldn't have even gotten to where they were today, right? Like, yeah, it's shitty that this has happened, but that is still at least the recognition that they needed, and I'm sure they're still going to get something out of this, right? Whether it's from MLG or even if it's just down to the fact that, again, something we touched on is Hastro obviously saying that he's going to pay for them to get to Fort Worth and stuff like that. I'm sure they're going to get something out of this, and even if it is just that recognition moving forward for when there is another organization out there, or if they themselves continue to team and say, hey, look, we just need another org, we need another opportunity. I'm sure there'll be plenty more opportunities on the table for them at this point, right?
Yeah, I feel like this story has gotten pretty big. Like there are a lot of people outside of COD that are noticing it, and a lot of people that are picking up on it. I know that Adam Morrison lawyer pretty much like said that he would help out that team like pro bono and all that stuff. So I think that I think all it's pretty good to see like the story getting picked up more. I feel like a lot of other esports, they don't really understand like I think I saw the United owner or like the GM tweet about how this isn't like in other esports, like they don't have this problem. Well, like other esports aren't like COD. Like you don't have hundreds of amateur teams that have to fly to an event and have to pay for all these things to get like go to all these open events across the world just to just to get the chance to qualify for the pro league. Like you don't have like open events in League of Legends. Like you don't have open events in a lot of other like in pretty much any game. COD's just like unique in the way that our format's set up, and it requires certain things, and players have to sacrifice certain things, even if it's getting put under a scummy org.
So how, like, from your point of view, like how, because again, it's like we've said many times at this point, it's something that we need to fix somehow, right?
Yeah.
So how would you fix this if you had all power of the Call of Duty community? What would be something that you would put in place to try and kind of fix this? I know one of the things that we kind of did mention was like you mentioned about other esports and things like that, is like the whole academy team route, and really having something in place for those younger rosters and things like that, so that we can have breakthrough teams. But like I say, what would you do?
Honestly, there's like not many options really. Like if like the way that our current the current ecosystem in COD works is that like so many of these amateur teams have to they have to get some sort of funding to get to the event, and when they get to the event, all these teams make it. Like it makes an event what like a COD event is, like a spectacle. But I think that possibly like in order to prevent things like this, we might just have to like move away from such a big format. Like there's like 100 like plus teams pretty much every single open bracket for the last like 3 years. I think that's possibly like a little outdated. I think the only way to prevent certain things like this is to maybe have online qualifiers, like several, and then maybe MLG or Activision, they fly out 24 or 32 of like the best amateur open teams, and then they have their own event, and then MLG can cover, even though that is a lot to cover. But it like I feel like COD, I feel like for the prize pool that is currently like up for COD, they definitely make a lot, and I feel like they could invest way more into the space. And providing security to amateur players to like know that they have for sure like they can get to an event and don't have to worry about getting put under a certain contract would be better. And I feel like that's pretty much the only way to prevent that, even though players would have to sacrifice, they wouldn't get to play like not as many people would get to play on LAN, obviously, go to like open events, but like some, no offense to some open teams, but some of them shouldn't even be showing up to like these LAN events and playing. Like if you aren't like a certain you don't have like a certain level of talent. Obviously everybody needs to start somewhere, but I guess that's really the only way to fix it.
What about would you agree in saying like one of the big mistakes that we've kind of done over the years is phasing out like the UMGs and the Gfinities and the UGCs and all of these guys, because at this point we kind of have a monopoly on with MLG, right? Like it's basically MLG events and that's it. With every now and again, obviously with this Gfinity back in it, and they're throwing one in a few months. But do you think that even if maybe we didn't, or even if we backpedaled a little bit and we started opening up and allowing these other tournament organizers to start throwing these tournaments a lot more frequently, and then MLG maybe at the forefront and they shut down the open brackets and just allow all these other tournament organizers to take the lead on it? Because looking at like CSGO, for example, which is one of the only other like open esports at this point, because obviously a lot of them have franchised, that's basically what these younger players are doing, right? They're going to these smaller LAN events, and there's small CSGO LAN events all over the place and very frequent. Meanwhile, I feel like the only reason why there's not as many Call of Duty local LANs at this point is because of how we've kind of monopolized ourselves into the MLG, and that's it, right?
I feel like moving towards probably like the CSGO style format is the best thing for COD, because I don't know, CS like maybe open up like the thing about the CSGO like system is that there's not just like one pro league. Like there's multiple pro leagues. There's different tournament organizers, and there's not exactly like you can't really define like a pro team could be like a horrible team, you know, in like 2 months. Like it's kind of it's kind of weird, and I feel like COD's kind of like that. Like I felt like in years past, like in World War II and IW, the low tier pro teams weren't that good. Like the Elevate team in the end of IW, they did not deserve to be in the pro league. Like there were so many other teams that were better than them, and I feel like over the course of a game, you know, eventually some AN teams form that are actually really good rosters, and that have been better than certain pro teams in the past. And I feel like franchising is obviously a good thing and all that, but I personally don't like it just because I feel like it closes off like new talent a lot, and it prevents, you know, a lot of players from coming up. Because like if you think about it, like if you look at most of the amateurs that are picked up now onto high tier teams, like they're all players that are slayers, you know, like Priest and Exotic, like they were like just good players. Like you don't really like, the only way if you're not like a stat patty like amateur player, like if you're just like the sub player that just happens to bait a lot on your team, but like you do a lot of the rough work, like you're not, if in franchising, like that doesn't look attractive to like teams that, because like teams are looking to make a big upgrade, you know, and like players like that, like the only way for players like that to make the pro league would be to make it with their actual team, you know, go through the relegation, go through the qualifier, and that kind of gets lost. And I feel like if we franchise, the only people that would actually make it, or like new talent, would be like just people that pro teams that see these amateurs just slaying. And I feel like that would just like that would be the pretty much only route for new talent. Just be a slayer.
Yeah, and so I mean, and that's obviously, again, if we did go down the franchising route, I think that's when like academy teams and things like that would definitely have to come into play. But I mean, I don't know, I'm just kind of playing around with ideas at this point. The other option might be, you know, we have the pro league and then we have like an AM league, which is like the second division, where at the end of each season or split or whatever it ends up being, we have like, you know, the playoffs where we've got obviously the top teams in the division that play off for whoever the winner is, but then we also have the bottom teams of the pro league and then the top teams of the AM league,
like a relegation.
Yeah, exactly. And then the AM league is just a little bit more open than the pro league is, so they do have more options as far as like transfers and getting new players in and things like that, right? I don't know. I mean, obviously at this point we're just going down the whole speculation route and trying to figure things out for the top dogs, but
definitely I don't know. I feel like, you know, with Activision being owned by Blizzard, they're just going to take the complete like Overwatch route, which I mean, it's I don't know. I just don't think that really fits the way COD works. I feel like the future for COD is the CS:GO style format, like qualify for these big major events and have open qualifiers. Like that way, you know, if you're like a team, like you can still have an amateur team and still feel like you're working towards something as a team. You know, like if you're like an amateur team, like when everything's franchised, you don't feel like you're working towards anything. Like you're not going to be able to play against the big dogs, win like a big championship. Like you're kind of just playing for yourself, you know. But
no, absolutely.
I feel like the thing about COD is like, with the way the open bracket works is like, well, at least before, not now, but like you kind of like everybody came in, like everybody's coming to the event with a dream, you know, like just run through open bracket, you know, get to pool play, like beat Optic, you know, like and like win the event or do good. Like I feel like that's like the mindset people have when they show up to an open event. It's kind of what keeps COD alive, like the dream, you know, playing against like people that you admire, you respect, and your idols and stuff. But franchising just kind of takes that away.
Yeah, that's something that Sam was saying earlier as well. Is, you know, part of the thing that we enjoy as spectators is obviously being able to see these teams come through, like people that we've never heard of, or
you could say
like that very few people have heard of, and they come in and just make the pro league or they win an event, and you're like, who are these guys, right? And it's just part of what Call of Duty is at this.
And like with the CS:GO major that happened recently, that ENCE team. NC Sports, like 4 of them never even been to a major, and they're in a major final. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
if you franchise, like, that kind of stuff just doesn't happen anymore. Like that kind of miracle story.
Exactly.
It just. I don't really follow Dota too much, but like there's been a lot of like tournament like runs in Dota in the international of like certain like teams like from like Taiwan or like just crazy the Rainbow Six tournament like that. I think it was like some team from Japan or something that just had an insane run in the tournament, like nobody expected it. I feel like those are stories that people really like that they appreciate in esports. And
Yeah.
Exactly.
it's just you won't see that kind of stuff if we franchise like this.
Yeah, no, exactly. And
kind
like
of just kills the dream,
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, exactly. Again, it's one of those. We kind of, again, obviously, we touched on it earlier. Between the two of us, there was so much like backwards and forwards going along the whole way. Even like just between ourselves, like I found myself starting off a sentence where I was like going on the pros, and then by the end of it, I'm talking about the cons against it, because there's just so many pros and cons, and I think we are. Unfortunately, I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later, which I don't think we're quite ready for it, because I do think there's a lot of changes that we need before we go there. But anyway, so moving on, obviously we've talked quite a bit on that, and we've still had quite a lot of other Rostermania stuff going on. One of the things was, one of the first things actually was Rec announcing Dylan moving to their starting roster. What are your thoughts on that?
I feel like that's like a big upgrade. Like that team was like Tommy like needed some help on the map. I feel like that team was already like they had all the makings of a team. Like they already have like great camaraderie. Like they had pretty good chemistry, but they were just missing some things in game. Like and I feel like Dylan is like he fits in perfectly with those players. Like they're all passionate, energetic players, and like Dylan's like guys from I think he's from Ireland, so like that guy's I don't know, he's one of the most passionate like people besides the Heretics players that I've seen in COD. I remember watching I think in World War II the online qualifier for Europe to make it to the relegation tournament. I was watching some stream of some team that he was on, and he was just like playing this French team, and he was just talking so much shit to the French players, and I was just that was like the most like I just couldn't believe that was like a tournament match. This guy was just going ballistic, and he was just piecing while he was doing it. It was insane. He's
that's I think pretty much still the epitome of a lot of EU COD is a lot of trash talk going on, to be honest. But
what do you
just really quick want to give a shout out to Rumors for hosting the channel there. Thanks, Rumors.
What do you think about them going the EU route, getting Dylan rather than necessarily getting an NA player that might have had more previous success?
I know that they already had Dylan as their sub,
right?
But I don't really like. Obviously, it's the Rostermania period. They could have picked up whoever they wanted, but I don't know. I feel like not like the accents. I feel like with Splice, like they like it's only one person. Like it's four people, pretty much the same tone of voice, and then you have Jared, which I don't think like that's that big of an issue. They probably hear him pretty good. It's only one person, but it might be a big adjustment for an American player to get used to like completely different voices that he's heard his whole life, different call outs too, different like speed in the call outs. I feel like Dylan kind of just fit the makeup of their team better. I feel like he's
the current roster.
Like maybe if Dylan, like if he let's just say he plays a different game, like he's not in COD, I have no clue who they pick up.
Right. I mean,
I feel like he was just perfect for him.
I mean, I don't know how much you can speak about their team, but do you kind of know what was happening behind the scenes in terms of why they felt they needed to replace Dens? I know you said you felt like Tommy needed more help on the map.
I think it was just strictly like performance. Dens is like a great player. He's had some games where he's like for sure he was like the best player on Mind Freak, but I feel like he was really good at World War II. But I just don't think this game suits him as well as other games. He's still an incredibly smart player, and but I think he kind of knew also like like that this Dylan guy could probably do it better than me. It's just this game requires more mechanically than since like going from World War II to this game, like the amount of like work you need to do, like just mechanical skill is like off the charts compared to World War II.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, and so obviously we've also got Facento retiring from EG, which is I don't think a lot of people were necessarily expecting that. I know he's mentioned going into like content creation and things like that as well. We mentioned the fact that he lives in a house with MaDaC, Enable, and JCap, the Oak Boys as they like to call themselves. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think it was probably a good. I don't know if like they forced the change or if he felt like he needed to step back, but I think that it's definitely good for EG. Like it's no lie that Cinto was like underperforming.
Yeah,
I know that they needed like kind of a voice on their team, so I think he initially helped their team out a lot. And in the stock 2 meta, like it was really easy to be good with a SOG. So that team like you don't really, your SOG players don't need to be as like good with like stock 2 in that meta, and it kind of made their team pretty good, you know? Like it didn't really take that much work for your SOG players to be that good. But, you know, once it got taken away, I think that they struggled a little bit.
Yeah.
But Facento specifically.
Yeah, I know it's definitely affected my league play this week. So yeah, I feel him on that one. Maybe I should retire as well.
Yeah, I think that probably he should have been like. I don't think that in terms of this game he'd be that bad with the MaDaC. It's just, you know, I think he's probably there weren't many options because I'm pretty sure he like waited till a few of his options like he didn't have any more options left to retire.
Yeah.
But I feel like if he was on a different team as a MaDaC and he could like restart, then I feel like he could really help out a team. But I don't think he should have been a SOG. He went from like a main AR on G2 to a SOG on EG. It's definitely a big adjustment.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and yeah, like you said, I'm sure it wasn't an easy decision for him.
It's just like after the 2 weeks that they had in their league, you had to make a change.
Right.
Exactly. So yeah, I'm excited to hopefully see him either get on like the desk.
He should definitely be on the desk for sure.
Yeah.
No offense to our current desk, but I know that
we touched on that a little last week.
There's been a lot of I've seen Reddit, a lot of things on Reddit about the desk. I wouldn't say I'm as harsh or about the desk as Reddit, but I definitely feel like it's missing a little bit more of a deep dive, like analytical side. More like it felt like I know that they got better as they got more criticism, but the first 2 weeks of the Pro League. More or less felt like I guess like a Skype call of friends, you know, and like a host, Katie, and more or less felt like Katie hosting a Skype call. But I didn't feel like the last 2 weeks were as bad, but that's how it felt the first 2 weeks.
I do have a quick question about Reddit in general. Like, I feel like a lot of pros, like, I don't know, just see it as like a cesspool of just hatred. Like, do you frequent like the COD competitive subreddit? Like, what are your general opinions on it? Do your team kind of frequent it?
I think it kind of depends on the players you have on your team. There are certain players that Reddit just has like blacklisted, like they'll just never like Moach. There's just some players that just don't have a good rep with Reddit right now, and I feel like if you have one of those players on your team, then there's nothing that your team can do that can change their opinion, which kind of sucks. Like your team could be incredibly like good, but you can have like one of the players that Reddit just hates, and it just won't matter. They'll just say that your team sucks.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if you've ever experienced any of the lashback of Reddit's wrath, but
yeah, we definitely did with the whole spoof thing. That was crazy.
Oh, true. But like I've seen like, you know, even when Kama was going through his rough days and stuff like that last year, and you know, it definitely affects players for sure. Seeing some of the stuff that Reddit has to say.
I feel like the COD Reddit specifically isn't enough to like make a player like change them or influence how they play. But I feel like if you're on Optic and you have like the COD Reddit and the Optic Reddit and all the Optic people tweeting you, then I can see how it would get annoying. But I feel like if you're talking just the COD Reddit like isolated, I don't feel like
it's not bad.
Yeah, like I don't think like maybe in COD like in BO2 or after that when COD was like crazy on social media, maybe. But I feel like social media things have kind of like plateaued a little bit. Things have got like people have gotten used to certain pros or stuff like that. So I don't think the Twitter hate is as bad for certain teams or certain pros. But definitely if you're on Optic or I guess United, I feel like those are like the two like teams that have like the most like storylines and attention.
Of course.
I feel like, like being on those two teams, it's definitely tough.
So kind of to wrap up here, I'm just looking at the Fort Worth groups. You're in a group with Genji, Heretics, you guys, and Denial. What are your kind of expectations going into that? What are you?
I definitely feel like we got a good group. Obviously, we playing against Genji, a new Genji with Envoy, but I think that it's gonna be interesting because it's like two teams that just made a roster change and Heretics, and Denial. But Heretics, I think we played obviously with different versions of our team. But I think we played them in World War II in open bracket when they were going through open bracket. When I was coaching GGA Orange, we played them twice. We beat them both times, and then I know I wasn't coaching them at the time, but I think they were Moratory. It was like Phantoms, Nova, Mayhem, and Spoof, and they played them at the Champs qualifier. I think in World War II they called it Champs qualifier, and they played them and they got thrashed by Heretics. But then I think since I coached UYU, we played Heretics at Vegas, and we beat them there. We played pretty good, but they went pretty ham on the rest of our group after we played them. Yeah, I think we kind of knew what to expect when we played them because like we like Mayhem and Spoof and Nova, like they'd already played them like twice. They understand like they're about to huddle up, they're about to scream at you. Like I think that we kind of like knew like what to expect. But like a lot of teams at Vegas, they saw like, oh, a Spanish team in our pool, like we don't really gotta warm up, like we don't know, like we don't care like what maps it is in the series, like just veto whatever. But yeah, I feel like now people are definitely taking them very seriously. So yeah, I feel good about a lot of the matches. I feel like the Genji change, a lot of the community is ripping Genji because like it's basically such an established pro. But you gotta think about. I feel like a lot of the community doesn't really look like too far into certain things. There's some people I see that definitely do that deserve like more credit, but you gotta look at like how you win, like how your team wins. You don't gotta look at how you lose really. Like if you look at how they won in the pro league, they literally went undefeated in search. Like that's almost impossible. Like you can't really keep that up. That's not something that any team keeps up over the course of a game.
Yeah.
And you can't really rely on just one game mode, going undefeated in one game mode, to win you so many series. And like they were really struggling in hardpoint. I'm pretty sure they were kind of struggling in control. Like a lot of their controls would go last round. But yeah, I feel like it was a pretty good change long term for the team. Like they'll get better at hardpoint eventually. They'll probably get better at control. Maybe not as good at search, I guess, but I think that they'll probably stay the same or they just become better in a lot of different areas. And I feel like it's somebody that they can like vibe with better and they can discuss things better with. So I feel like the community is kind of looking at it wrong and ripping those players too much. But I get Spacely's an established pro. A lot of people feel a certain way about it, but personally, I feel like it was a pretty good change. Even though Spacely probably didn't deserve to get dropped, he kind of like created the team, quote unquote. But that doesn't really give you like the rights. I feel like a lot of people just say, oh, just because like this guy's like the dad of the team or whatever, doesn't mean you have to like, like that doesn't mean he should just do whatever and
be grandfathered into the team. Yeah.
But yeah. So Heretics, Genji, Denial. I feel like Denial. They kind of went to the league and didn't really look so hot, but they definitely improved.
Yeah, towards the end, for sure.
I feel like they have a boot camp in Vegas. They'll probably be a lot better. They get to play against NA teams.
Nice.
So yeah, I feel like they'll definitely be a lot better in a lot better form than they are at than they were at the Pro League.
So you kind of imagining like a real tough group here. You're not taking anyone lightly.
I think it'll be tougher than people expect. I feel like people look at this group as like the easiest or second easiest group. But it's kind of, I don't know. The perception on certain teams always blows my mind. Like the power rankings going into the Pro League look completely different. Well, not completely, but a lot of it looks different than our current standings for Division A and Division B.
Yeah.
I think people had us like last or second to last going into our week, and people had EG at like second. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people took the PLQ like results too literally, and like a lot of things change day to day, week to week. Like a lot of teams change. A lot of people get better really fast or get worse fast. And yeah, I feel like people kind of look at the big name teams and like they
I was about to say
always
that,
lean
like,
towards them.
big name teams, like, it definitely has a big thing, like UYU compared to like EG. Like EG definitely is the bigger, or like the easier to just assume they're going to do better, but
Yeah,
obviously not the case.
yeah. This is a game where you definitely have to take every team seriously. Like if you walk into like a map veto, like you walk up to the ref and you have no idea what you're vetoing, then it will show in your series. I feel like you could tell with LG in the first week in our pro league that they were walking into all their series just knowing that they would win. Like they didn't really put much effort into some of the matches, but I think after that first week, it definitely hit them in the face.
Right.
They realized that they need to switch some things around. I saw Ricky had a notebook out for the second week, so yeah, they definitely started to turn things around. But it's definitely a game where you actually need to take every team seriously, especially these pro teams, because this is like the best pro league that we've definitely ever had. Like after the pro league qualifier, and a lot of these teams, just made upgrades too. Like everybody pretty much got better. So it's except for I guess Midnight, but it's it's definitely
and I mean even then it's still to be determined,
true,
right? We
true.
still don't know how that's going to turn out. So, but I mean, I think we know what the answer to this is going to be. But who are you predicting be coming out on top in Pool A?
Pool A's our pool, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say us first, and Heretics second.
Okay.
I think Genji will get third, and then Denial fourth probably.
Wow.
Genji or Heretics probably could switch them out for second.
Yeah.
So
and then
I was just going to say, kind of removing yourself from the possible outcomes, who do you have taking Fort Worth as a whole, like the entire tournament?
I guess Optic, they were looking really good online. I feel like they kind of got their mojo back. When something like that happens, you have to play with a whole new player. It kind of changes your viewpoint on your team. Like you see what your team was lacking before. You kind of see what a new player brings to your team. So you kind of understand a lot more things about your team. And I feel like that those 2 weeks were definitely a learning experience for them, like just about their team and like what they need. And especially like Scump had to run a whole new role. So he kind of sees things different through like a MaDaC's point of view than than a SOG. So role switches and roster changes, like obviously there can be negative sometimes, but they can also be like a lot of pros where you see different viewpoints of the game and what certain people do on the map that you don't have to normally do. So yeah, I feel like that actually made their team better, not having to play with Dashi those 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I feel like they definitely have a better understanding of the game in other people's lenses. And I think they're probably the best right now.
Yeah, I think I don't remember what I was watching. In fact, it might have been Vision for on Optics channel. I think it was Scump that was saying basically that exact same thing. The fact that obviously a lot of people saw it as a negative thing for them not having Dashi and things like that, but the fact that they obviously managed to still do pretty well with the pickup and prove that they don't need arguably their best player. To put up some good numbers, and then now that they are going to have him back, they have even more to prove that we're still that team and we can still do this, and now we're going to show you. So yeah, and so pretty much that's all the main questions that we did have for you. Now, Jack, what I wanted to do just before we kind of wrapped up is open it up to the chat, and I actually had a personal question for you as well. So I guess I'll start off with this one. So So I just wanted to ask you. Obviously, we don't really see so we're starting to see a lot of these series like Vision coming out on YouTube and things like that now, where we are starting to see a little bit more of the insight of the players and coaches and things like that. But my question was, what is the day in the life of a coach during these times when you're in the pro league, after the pro league, before the pro league?
Yeah.
Revolving around.
I'd say it's different from coach to coach. I know there are some teams that have like an analyst and a coach, or like they have like a backdoor analyst, like somebody that you guys don't see that like takes down stats and stuff. So like a lot of coaches, there's some coaches that do a lot more work than others, and there's like there's definitely some coaches that hold on. Yeah, there's definitely some coaches that have certain other people like working with them. But me personally, I don't really have anybody else like that like helps me out. I pretty much do like all my stats by hand. I kind of take stats for every like scrim series that we play, like that's close to the league. Or like yeah, whenever we're close to something, we kind of start to get more serious about certain things. But yeah, basically just wake up, I guess, watch some VOD from the previous day, kind of get some more stats, and then scrim. Go through every scrim, play probably 2 scrims a day, go over that, and then watch that VOD, and then pretty much the same thing the next day. In terms of at the pro league, I'd say like we play our match, go home, and if we win, then we watch the maps that we lost, and then if we lose, then we pretty much like watch the whole series. But yeah, I feel like there's actually like a lot of teams that I feel like a lot of Reddit and like Call of Duty audience in general think a lot of teams like put in a lot of work. There are some teams that literally put in like almost no effort. I'm not gonna obviously name those teams or like coaches, but there's definitely some people that put in like not that like they don't really watch VODs like definitely in Pro Leagues past it was like that, but I feel like this year there's probably like an all-time high in terms of like staff, like coaching staff and people going over stuff. And I know Heretics has like 3 coaches. Almost every team has a coach or an analyst in some fashion.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you feel like the amount of effort people put in is generally reflected in the results?
No. To be honest, like in terms of just coaches, like coaches don't really have that much of a direct effect on the game, especially in this game. Like a lot of it's on the players. A lot of it is just the same situations over and over again that you just need to win certain gunfights that you need to win. Maybe you could argue about S&D coaches having a pretty good influence, but even then, like with specialists, it kind of changes. It kind of changes things because in World War II, coaches were pretty huge in S&D, especially hardpoint too, because there were certain hills that teams would play the same way, certain like rotation routes that certain players would take every single time. But this game is a little bit different since it's 5 players. Things are really fast. So a lot of things are just a certain player needs to fill in this situation. Like it's not really, it's pretty much like a different map every time, except for same people going the same or different people going to the same places, same routes in terms of like high level. But I wouldn't say you see a direct effect. Like I know some coaches that quote unquote like aren't the best coaches really. Like they don't really put that much work into it. But they just have an insane team, or like they just have really good players, and like that's just how it is. There are a lot of good coaches out there, that like don't have like the best players, or they didn't have like a good perform like Revan. Like he's an incredible coach. He does a lot, puts in so much work, and they bottomed out in our group. So it's definitely I wouldn't really say having a good coach like correlates with good results. A lot of it is on the players. Coaches is like an accessory that you can a team can either use to make you better or worse. That's pretty much just all it is. It's not really an integral part of the team. It's definitely an accessory that I feel like you need, because especially in scrims, it's like most coaches, like, they record from Codcaster, so you get to see like that point of view. So obviously if you don't have a coach, then you don't get to see the whole mini map, like all the arrows, so you don't get to see that. And like you don't have like another person like in a discussion or argument, somebody that saw the situation. But yeah, I feel like coaches are important, and what kind of Call of Duty it is decides how important they are. But it definitely you definitely like need one, but it doesn't have like a direct effect on your performance. But you definitely like you need one just for the sake of all these other teams having one, and you kind of it's a disadvantage if you don't have one.
Right.
That's fair.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So we have a couple of questions here in the chat. We're not gonna drag it on for too much longer, though. I know the old man Sam is here about to fall asleep.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry for taking so long. That's my bad.
That's all right. I'm almost 30. I'm getting on in the world, so midnight is late for me.
So one of the first questions we got is well, I guess I'll include this one for you, Rumors. So his first question was, can a 27-year-old father of 4 still make it into the Pro League?
I mean, anything's possible. I mean, if you're insane at the game, then you're insane.
Good answer.
He's pretty good. He carried me at league play, so I can't really complain.
And then, so his next question was, what are your thoughts on 100 Thieves starting off in the league kind of rough, but coming back and being number 1 in Group B? And think getting Priester and Crowder is what they needed to be top 5 in the league.
Yeah, I feel like that was definitely like in terms of all the teams that made a change, that was probably like the most impact. They definitely needed a change really bad. I feel like a lot of people were saying that they needed 2 changes, but I didn't really think that they needed 2. I felt like it was more or less just 1. It didn't really matter, but they definitely needed a coach and a different player. But I don't know. It seems like a lot of people were kind of misjudging them. Like I felt like it was weird because like in scrims, they weren't really doing that bad. Except for like the pre-POQ, they weren't doing so hot. But I feel like a lot of people, even in their scrims, like they would see like a screenshot or something, they'd be kind of judging it. But some teams like some teams are actually just better like in scrims. I felt like like their scrims kind of just weren't showing it. I kind of had a feeling that they would do pretty good. I didn't know that they would be first, but I thought that they would do pretty good. I feel like Replays is definitely like probably one of the best coaches in the league, and Priest is definitely like a top 10 player like in this game. He does like a lot for a team. He's like passionate about the game. He just wants to learn. He's not really like a speed bump, for your team. He's more of a he's willing to help out.
I think one of the big things that I noticed is, we heard some of the comms and some of the arguments that were kind of going on with that roster earlier in the game, and I think Priester just really adds that a little bit more energy and positive vibes, and like Kenny, for example, is a pretty energetic guy when he gets going, and I think the addition of Priest is something that really brings that out in him. It's a lot of value aspect as well, right?
Yeah, I feel like they just needed another like light on that team. It seemed like with Octane and Slasher and Pharaoh that things could get dark really fast, and like arguments and stuff, and maybe like another person to be a little bit more positive kind of help them out.
Yeah. Perfect. And so last question, also from Rumors. He's a constant viewer in the chat, by the way.
Nice.
He asks, do you think UYU will have a content side, streamers, YouTubers, and not just the COD team in the future?
I know that they're definitely working on content stuff right now. I don't really know like too much about it, but I think with all the events that we have going on this year, I think that they'll definitely have like way more content. I know that they're an org that's growing like really fast, so it's only gonna happen soon, I think.
Of course. And I guess to add on to that, are we going to see any Jack content coming our way soon?
I don't know. I'm not really that important, I think. But
I think
I don't know. You could do
again
a Coach Jack series. Teach us
you were saying obviously before about analysis on the desk and stuff like that. Maybe that's something you can do, is pick up like some of your older scrims that after it's been a little while, and maybe give some analysis, or maybe get viewers to send something into you.
Yeah, That's a good idea. I know that like some coaches, like they're reluctant to teach because they never know who's in the stream. I know that.
True.
I remember after I think it was the World War II champs, Bevels did like a stream of like breaking down like all their S&D strats, which was pretty dope to watch. But,
yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely probably do something like that. That sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, one sec. The rumor said that's why Stoney has me to pick up his vibe, but yeah, just wrong. Referring back to league play earlier on in the week. Well, I think that's about it as far as questions as we have for you, Jack. I really want to thank you for coming on. Stoney, do you have anything else?
1 second.
Yeah, Tony's wife walking in there. So, yeah, like I said, I think that's pretty much it, though. So, again, thank you so much for coming on and having a good chat here with us on the brand new CWL podcast. I really do appreciate it, like I said.
Thanks for having me.
And, man, you were like I said, you're the first guest that we've had on the show. So, hopefully the first of many. I have been kind of watching the viewers list as we've been going along, and I did see earlier on, just shortly after you came in, actually we had Revan stopped in at one point, had Spoof was in for a little bit as well. So
get it.
He was in a little bit after you was talking about him though, so don't worry. No, you didn't really say too much other than positive things, so we're good. But yeah, so again, really appreciate it. Stoney, you want to add anything on?
No, sorry. Wife talking. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. This was good. Glad to be on.
I'm sure, you know, if you can make it work in your schedule, we'd like to have you on after again. It's kind of review.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank
awesome.
you.
Well,
have a good night.
Yeah. Thanks again. You too.
Peace.
Bye-bye. All right, then. Stream podcast viewers, everybody who's, podcast listeners, I guess. Thank you all for tuning in as well. This has been a long one. I know, again, Old Man Sam here is about to go to bed.
About to fall asleep on my desk.
We certainly wasn't expecting it to be anything like this. Obviously, we had to kind of play around with the timing of everything with Jack getting caught up with some scrims against the United. Obviously, just picking up the new player. So obviously, they're trying to get as much practice in before Fort Worth. But yeah, so again, I've been watching, like I said with Jack just then, I've been watching the viewers and everything throughout the night, and we've been way above 10 viewers all throughout the night. So thank you so much for all the support. We really do appreciate it. And for anybody who's interested as well, anybody who can't tune in on a weekly basis, because so me and Sam kind of touched on this last week. We unfortunately not going to be able to have a exactly consistent schedule for the podcast just because of real life. Work and family and everything else. So if ever there's a time where you're not able to tune in and watch the episode live, we are now live also on so we premiere the podcast.
Sorry, I'm just watching Danielle in the background.
Yeah, I saw her as well. We do now premiere the episode live on YouTube as well. I think I was thinking about this earlier. I think we're gonna start doing that literally the day after we first do the episode. So tomorrow, if there's anything that you missed, you're going to be able to catch it premiere on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/MaDaC. And then also we're now syndicated across iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, and Spotify.
Listen, baby.
It was hard at work this week.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, we're now live across all of those channels. And then on top of that, if you want to catch more of me and Sam, this is obviously my Twitch channel. I'm live pretty often throughout the week, again trying to come up with more of a consistent schedule. I think what I'm going to start doing is tweeting my schedule actually at the start of every week, and then updating my schedule below the stream. So if you haven't already and you really enjoyed the podcast, be sure to hit that follow button above the stream so you see exactly when we go live again. Like Stone mentioned earlier, we're probably going to be playing some Modern Warfare Remastered, as well as I'm sure some more League play, and hopefully no more ASMR this week. Otherwise I don't think we'll see much more of Stoney.
No, you will not.
Forward. But yeah, that's pretty much all from me. Stoney, do you have anything to add on for that?
No, good night. I'm going to bed.
So yeah, once again, thank you all for watching. What I am going to do real quick is actually go ahead and host my boy Dead Bunny. He's currently streaming a little game called Dead by Daylight, so if you would be so kind as to join me over on his stream, I would appreciate it, and I know he would too. So once again, guys, I want to thank you all for watching. Have a good evening, have a good week, and we will see you guys next week. Bye bye.
We done?